and death are the same. Both can have value and purpose.
Hear me, my son. I alone will tell you the truth. Death is the only punishment here.
Death is in our air, in sea, in earth. It can come for us at any moment. To show your true heart is to risk your life. Enemies are everywhere and friends nowhere. Life and death are the same. Both can have value and purpose. Remember, we live and we die. We control nothing beyond that.
This is not where we die. We should be corpses. But here we are. Engumiにより我らがより強く結びつくという案、いかがでございましょうか。Mariko-sama, don't go to Osaka.
My allegiance forbids me from doing anything else.
Next Tuesday.
我らは敗北に向かう道を進まれる殿に従うことはできませぬ。
そなたは己の務めを果たす覚悟ができておるか。
FX's Shōgun next Tuesday at 10 on FX. Stream on Hulu.
And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another live breakdown of Shōgun Episode 8, The Abyss of Life. And I think it's pretty safe to say that this was one of the most emotionally charged episodes and heart-pounding, especially with some of the intense scenes that we got in this episode. And I gotta say, it was a great episode overall. Love the acting as per usual. But I do have a few small gripes with this episode in particular. And of course, the big climactic event towards the end of the episode with the just unfortunate scene with Hiromatsu. And can we get some RIPs, Hiromatsu, in the chat for a fallen warrior, a true samurai, loyal to the end. And I gotta say, was an incredible, incredible end to his character arc. But welcome, everybody. Ladies and gentlemen, everybody on the panel and on the chat, we are going to dive into all things Shōgun Episode 8. Dana, Scarlett, Ravener, how is it going, everybody? How did you guys like Episode 8? Ravener, I know you and I talked a little bit, not much, just briefly, but how are you feeling overall?
Man, when I'm enthusiastic, when I'm positive, that's coming from the heart. And I'm sorry, but tonight there's going to be some criticism, and it's coming from the heart too. Totally. Chat, you guys know, I'm not just doing it for, to be edgy or whatever, but man, this one did not work for me on a lot of levels. And the thing is, okay. it was super, like you said, man, emotional. That is number one. And, very right offhand, when Hiromatsu died, it was like, oh man. And it would have been easy to just go, oh, F this, whatever. But it wasn't that. That was probably the best scene in the whole thing. Almost, I think they, because I was the one tossing around this series could be a 10 out of 10. And even as recently as last week, I said this series is a 10 out of 10, and the 10 is theirs to lose in the next 3 episodes. Well, 10's off the table.
This episode alone takes the 10 out of the 10 completely off the table for you, regardless of what happens in the next 2.
Yeah. And I'll explain it, in depth a little more. And it's still going to be great. It's still an awesome show. Great, wonderful, all that stuff. But it isn't going to be groundbreaking. It isn't going to be I was
Ooh.
thinking of what it would be like Succession, like House of Cards. It went from being awesome to, it's a political thriller. It's it's all right. It's good.
Okay, interesting. Okay, I'm looking forward to diving into it. And yeah, Henry Bemis brings up a very good point. It wouldn't be fun if everybody just always had the same take on everything and we all agreed on everything. It's nice to have some varying opinions on the panel and in the chat from time to time. It keeps things fresh. So I totally agree with Henry Bemis there. But what about you, Scarlett? First impressions on episode 8. What kind of stood out to you? Obviously, the Hiramatsu thing was big, but did anything else in particular kind of stick out to you with episode 8?
I mean, this episode, I'm gonna disagree, Ravener, because I liked it. We got a lot in this episode as far as I feel like setup and closure to things in previous episodes. And although maybe it didn't turn out as some would like, I liked what's going on with Ochiba, and I like kind of, oh man, now I'm gonna mess up his name. Ishido.
Yep.
I always figured he was the proposal thing. I kind of saw that coming. He was sweet on her. So a lot of the stuff, I don't know if it was it wasn't so much a great episode as much as it was sort of like a stepping stone episode, if that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah, it definitely had, obviously, the last 15 minutes is when the real kind of episode really happens. Obviously, we have the great kind of tea ceremony scene with Mariko and Buntaro as well, which I'm sure we are going to dissect the heck out of. But yeah, the last 10, 15 minutes of this episode was when really kind of everything kind of really happens and we get some revelations and, the big climactic scenes. But yeah, it was a roller coaster for me. I liked a ton about this episode, and there were a few things that I think could have been handled a little better. So I'm kind of on the fence. It's definitely not my favorite episode of the whole season, but it definitely had some of my favorite scenes in this episode.
I mean, the tea scene was really. I know it's heartbreaking, but I liked it. I liked both Buntaro and Mariko's point of view and how they were feeling like that, because it really lets you understand both of their hearts at the end of this and where they stood this whole time. So I liked it. I liked the setup. I liked the show that he put on for her. I mean, there were so many things in this episode I still really enjoyed, although the ending was very sad.
It was sad. It was sad indeed. What about you, Dana? Your first thoughts and impressions on episode 8. How did you like it?
I'm definitely on middle ground on this episode to where it wasn't my favorite. I still understood it. Like, I still got the point of what the episode was trying to convey. I was lost in a few moments. And I don't know if that's what they were trying to do. Like, there were moments where I was like, is he really giving up? Is he not giving up? Is this a setup? Is this not a setup? Like, the whole time I just had these kind of like butterflies in my stomach because I was like, am I missing something? Like, did I not catch something? Did I not see something? Like, is this Crimson Sky? Is it not part of Crimson Sky? Like, there was a few moments to where I was kind of lost in the episode until like I finally got through it till the end. And I was like, okay, but like it ripped my heart out at the end.
It was
like I was just like, he is so loyal and such a friend that he is like, this is literally what needs to be done to take the next steps in what's about to happen. So I understood it, but I was still sad for it.
It was a really sad scene. And again, we praise the acting on this show time and time again, and for a very good reason. The acting performances have been just so freaking top notch. But this was one of the most well acted scenes in the entire series up until this point, in large part thanks to Hiramatsu's performance. I mean, it was until you get that reveal at the very end of the episode that it kind of was, theater, for lack of a better term. You legit think that Toranaga is really giving up. Like, they really brought that impression, they drove that home very well, where even me, where the whole time I'm thinking in the back of my head, Toranaga's definitely got some kind of plan up his sleeve. There's no way he's really giving up. Even I thought for a few times in this episode, like, wait a minute, is he actually really giving up? So I can't praise the performances enough. And Doc Hayes brings up something that I 100% agree with as well. in terms of some of the changes from book to show. And I don't mind the changes. I've actually been enjoying some of the changes. I've said it time and time again, it's for me, it's not always very fun knowing everything that's going to be happening in a series like we do with our House of the Dragon and Game of Thrones shows. But yeah, every once in a while, it's just nice to not know what's coming. So any book changes, I've been kind of welcoming at this point, and they've strayed pretty, far enough from the book up until this point. I know Michael Lockhart brought this up last week, where they've kind of strayed enough from the book so much up until this point where anything that happens could potentially be a surprise for book readers and people that are just watching the show alike. So definitely agree with Doc Hayes here. I don't mind the changes. I definitely understand it is an adaptation after all. An adaptation is supposed to adapt and not be a one-to-one imitation. So definitely agree with that. Definitely agree with this as well. Mariko's response to Buntaro was the absolute most brutal thing I've ever heard anyone say. And I mean,
yeah,
it's some powerful stuff when the audience is even a little bit starting to feel sorry for a character like Buntaro. That that tells you a lot about that scene. So I agree there. I kind of felt a little bad for him there.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, the thing is, and I mean, the one thing that we always lose track of, and I was thinking about this earlier today as well. The heir is a MacGuffin. We see him one time, but you know how like on Raiders of the Lost Ark, Indiana Jones, the Ark was the MacGuffin. That was what the MacGuffin, for people who don't know, and I'm sure almost everybody does, but it's the thing that drives a show forward. In the Maltese Falcon, the MacGuffin was the Maltese Falcon. Now, in Raiders of the Lost Ark, how much screen time did the Ark actually have? Almost none. It was all about the chase. It was about switching hands and everything. The heir is the MacGuffin, and that's what we see him one time, but mostly it's Ochiba, that's talking about who's working towards the goals of the heir. This the same thing here. We got a brief mention. How long have Mariko and Buntaro been married? Like 14 years. Imagine her being that nasty, bitter, spiteful, hateful bitch for 14 years. Oof. And then we're supposed to think he's a bad guy because he gets drunk and slaps her around 3 episodes ago. So now anything that he did in the past and on into the future now is justified because he did that. But here's what he had to live with for all that time. And meanwhile, the dude literally comes, he comes back essentially from the dead and finds her, eye fucking the first guy that literally washes up on shore. I think she got off easy. If I were Buntaro, I would have killed both of them, honestly. Oof. So that scene killed Mariko for me. I could care less what happens to her. I'm not interested in her little Powerpuff Girls, whatever girl boss moment with the Naginata in the next scene. I don't care. Let her die. The sooner the better. I might fast forward through it because I could not care less about her. That's one. Wow. That's an additional death. There's more than one death in this episode. Let me put it that way.
Interesting.
Okay, no, totally cool.
I understand though. I get it. No, I get what you're saying because you want to look at it like nobody wants to praise abuse. Nobody wants to do that. But could you imagine just getting that from the person? Like, was he always that way? He could have been cold, but just because he put his hands on her a few episodes ago, was that the basis of their whole marriage? We don't know. So she could have, in that one moment, she didn't have to be so cold. Like Ravener said, he came back from the dead. In that moment, he was trying. He was trying in that moment to be something to her. He didn't want to be this. I get what Ravener's saying. I completely understand what Ravener's saying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, absolutely. Because, in this scene, we do kind of get the, a glimpse of the other side of the coin, as it were, where for the most part, when we see Mariko and Buntaro's relationship on display, it's usually Buntaro kind of being the dickhead, for lack of a better term, in the relationship. But like you said, Ravener, I mean, Buntaro brings up one line during the tea ceremony where he kind of tries to think back to their early days when they first got married, and he kind of remembers it of them being happy. And even then, Mariko is just, kind of really cold with her response, where she's like, kind of can't even remember any of that, like, the way she responds. So yeah, I could totally understand with, if Mariko is this cold to Buntaro for the duration of their marriage, you can definitely start to see that's going to weigh on someone after a while. And like Dana said, you never want to excuse spousal abuse. It's never all right to put your hands on someone. But on one side, you can kind of understand, if this is what Buntaro has been dealing with for so long, it just paints a broader picture of their relationship as a whole, as opposed to just the one-sided Mariko story we've been seeing up until this point. But I can't lie, I kind of found myself feeling a little bit bad for Buntaro in that episode. Here he is, reaching out to Mariko, finally offering her seemingly the one thing she's wanted for years now, the permission to kill herself, for lack of better terms, the sweet release of death that he has been denying her for so long. And she just was not having it. She was just so cold right back. But we're going to dive into that and more. But before I do that, I got to say what is up to the awesome chat that we have assembled here this evening. Let me scroll up and see who has been joining us. And welcome, everybody, to our Episode 8 live breakdown, and I appreciate everybody taking the time to come and hang out with us for a little bit. I know Wednesday is definitely a tough day, hump day, as it were, so we appreciate you guys hanging out. We got Henry Bemis in the house. What is up, Henry Bemis? First, this episode was a heartbreaker. It was, in more ways than one. It was, like I said, definitely one of the most emotionally charged episodes, I think, of Shōgun. And yeah, R.I.P. to Hiramatsu. R.I.P. to Hiramatsu. Man, went out like a freaking champion. We got Star in the house. What is up, Star? Good to see you as well. We got Michael Lockhart in the chat. What is up, Michael Lockhart? Good to see you. Absolutely. Let's see what else we got. And welcome, everyone. We got Doc Hayes in the house. Buonasera. Buonasera to you as well, my friend. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Yeah, R.I.P. Hiramatsu. Absolutely love seeing that. Dude just went out like an absolute champ, albeit wasn't, we'll talk about the decision that led up, the circumstances rather that led up to him taking his own life. But the act in and of itself was incredibly brave and incredibly loyal to the end. You cannot deny that. Hiramatsu is a true samurai. We got Rooftop Korean in the house. What is up, Rooftop Korean? Good to see you as well. We got Crazy Mad in the building. What is up, Crazy Mad? Always good to see you, my friend. Welcome, welcome, welcome. And indeed, let me dump down here a little bit, see who else I can see. I see D-Wag in the house. What is up, D-Wag? Always good to see you, my friend. Welcome, welcome indeed. Throwing up the bow. Throwing up the bow. See Dracula in the house. What is up, Dracula? Always good to see you hanging out with us. I see Constitutional Carrot in the building. Mariko still has a kid, right? She does, indeed. Yes, Mariko and Buntaro do have a child together. And just from a mother's point of view, the kind of bond that a mother usually has with their child, you would think she would want to live, if for nothing else, just for her kid. But yeah, it's different time, just a different time, different culture, different morals, I guess. But yeah, she does still have a kid with Buntaro. We saw him briefly in episode 2, I believe, and I don't think we've seen him since. Maybe episode 3 was the last time we saw him. But yeah, he's around. He's around. We got Kai in the house. He's somewhere. He's somewhere. Opening, closing shoji screens, I'm sure, like a champ. Let's see. I will die on this hill. Mariko is a delusion Disney princess. Ooh, okay, Kai. So it looks like Ravener, you are not the only one that's becoming a little disenchanted with Mariko after this episode. And I can understand it. I am a little bit myself as well, and incredibly cold. And yeah, don't hold back for it.
I know. Well, Kai's a man of intelligence and refinement. I can't blame him for agreeing with me.
Well, because she had so many moments. She didn't have to pick that one moment to share something like that. Like, do you know how many women would give anything to have a husband who is somewhat remorseful, somewhat sorry, like he wanted to finally give her like beautiful ending that she was looking for. And you brought up her kid, like you have a child too, and you're still wanting to like kill yourself, like, and your child, like where, like now that Ravener's talking, I'm seeing it more and more.
Oh, I see it differently there. Oh.
Yeah, I mean, if they hadn't have I think if they hadn't have added the slap scene a few episodes ago, that's the only thing keeping Mariko from being a straight up villain, essentially.
Ooh, interesting take.
Man. I see it
Interesting
slightly
take.
differently there because I think she pretty much said, I don't think it's about the death. It's about if you go back to the flashbacks when she got married to him, she didn't want it, almost like she didn't want to do it to begin with. Like she never loved him to begin with. She doesn't want to be under his hand.
Well, she's running around with a knife, but she doesn't have the guts to do it to herself. She has to ask permission.
Yeah, but I get that. But in this time, women, as a woman, that's not a choice you have. Like, just because there is no love there, there's still, this is what women did then. So you have to
She's still
understand it.
technically property
Yeah,
of the
like
husband,
you in this era, who got to be with the person that they fell in love with? Did love really exist in this time? Most of the marriages were arranged. You were lucky if you ended up loving the person you were arranged to marry. You know, like that's a bonus for a woman in this time. So just because you hate your husband, like you have to be woman enough to say, okay, this is what I need to do. And like she was given the opportunity from Toranaga. She's like, then divorce him. So even then, you were still given somewhat of an option. So I get the whole duty. I get the whole, but as a woman, she still was given, in that moment, she was given a choice. And a lot of women aren't given that choice.
No, I understand that. Well, in terms of the divorce thing, I don't think she can divorce Buntaro, even if she wants.
Buntaro was given the option to divorce.
Buntaro. But if Buntaro wanted to divorce her, he could. But if she wants to divorce him, she doesn't have that right. That is solely on the husband's. That is solely the husband's decision. And
I'm not defending Mariko. What she did was really cold, and it was really a bitch move. I'm just trying to understand where she was coming from in that moment and listen to what she said, because I don't think it was ever about truly the death, like in the sense that she just, at first, I think the only reason she wanted to kill herself in the first place was because of her family. She wanted to end it because she was sad about, losing her family. And then she was also given to a man that she didn't want to be with. And I'm not saying I'm defending her words. I'm just trying to understand where Mariko's head was coming from, I guess. And so even though I see her being very cold in that moment, he says he wants, let's die together. That's when she says, you still in this moment don't understand what it is that I want from you. I never wanted this marriage. And she still told him it was a good show. She still honored the moment, but she's trying to express to him, I don't want to be with you. I have to because of honor, but I do not love you. In a very cold and heartless way, I do agree. But that is what I took from it.
Hey, don't do that, crazy.
Yeah, no, let's not hide people. Unless it was maybe an accident. Let's unhide Kai real quick. I'm sure it was an accident.
There we go. We got him. Yeah, man, that I think I know what they were going for in that scene with with Mariko. I know what they were going for, and it was supposed to be, sick burn, bro, whatever. That was just one of multiple scenes in this episode that just rang hollow with me. I mean, and obviously it did. It hit for some people. It did hit for them. For me, it just didn't. I thought I kind of saw what they were trying to do. But I just don't think they did. And there's multiple scenes in this episode where it just comes off wrong, almost to the point where I was going to look and see if they have different writers. It felt like it was like maybe there's writer strike happened and they had different writers for this episode, or it was take your kid to work day, and it was not working for me.
No, and that's totally cool. And again, that's what's good about a show like this, and that's what's fun about doing these kind of streams and getting back and hanging out with the chat, getting their takes on it and our takes on it. And like Henry Bemis brought up earlier in the chat, it's not fun if everybody agrees on everything 24/7. It's nice to have some different takes on the panel from time to time. So I love it, man. I love that people are seeing this episode and kind of seeing it through two totally different points of view, and maybe got something totally different out of it in the long run, which is great. That's what media is for. But if we're all consuming the same thing and thinking the same thing, there's not much diversity of thought then, and that's when creativity dies, in my opinion. And we don't want creativity to die, not when Ray Barnes is in the chat demanding for a moment of silence for Hiromatsu, then his titties.
Ray was demanding titties, and he got Hiromatsu titties.
He definitely got some. I mean, yes, I totally didn't even think of it. Yes, we did get Hiromatsu titties. Like, literally, we got Hiromatsu titties. And I believe I even have the screenshot to prove it. Let's see. Hiromatsu titties. Ray Barnes, this is the stream, brother. You're getting your titties. You are getting your titties.
Be careful what you ask for. Yeah.
Careful what you ask for. There they are.
Dinner and a show. Dinner and a show.
There they are. See, I knew they would. I knew I'd be able to legally show titties on the stream at some point or another. It might not be Tabitha's, but it's the next best thing with Hiromatsu.
You won't get blocked for those.
No, hopefully not. Hopefully not. And welcome, Ray Barnes, and welcome, Brian, as well. And welcome everybody else joining us this evening. You guys are absolutely awesome. And again, cannot thank you guys enough for spending some time and hanging out with us and talking some Shōgun. We got D-Wag, who's been a member for 9 months. Hail to the chat. Congrats on 15K, Jeremy. Looks like lots of cool stuff coming down the pipe. Much love. Hashtag #1 Ravener fan club. Hell yes. And thank you so much, D-Wag, for being a member and a really, really true friend of the channel. Mm-hmm. Hell yeah, man. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We got Lily May in the house. What is up, Lily May? Welcome, welcome, welcome. Episode 8 was powerful. It was. There were some powerful performances in it nonetheless. In terms of, I know we praise the acting on this show all the time, but I feel like it is for a good reason. A lot of the acting that we get in this series has just been top-notch performances. And in this scene in particular, even though I didn't like how everything went down personally, the way it was acted out beautifully in terms of everyone just putting on a really good performance. So, good stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah. Despite all the criticism, the acting, even if I thought the material that they had wasn't great, the acting was phenomenal as always. The set was phenomenal as always. All the visual spectacle was definitely on point. It was all there for this episode, and I absolutely loved all of that aspect. Did you notice though they still have those super hard edits, those between scenes? But scene change, the edits just go to black.
It's not as smooth as it could be. Yeah.
It's like, wow, what's going on with that? That would be if I had one technical criticism. It was like, what is going on there? But it just seems like the scenes are. I mean, of course, they are all shot separately, but it seems like they're just cobbled together. And whoever the editor is just doesn't mind putting 2 seconds of nothing.
Yeah, a little smoothness in there sometimes goes a long way. I do agree. And welcome to Mo Biggs as well, the one and only Mo Biggs. Always good to see you, my friend. Kai brings up a good point as well. Plus it was a high-stress moment when their lives may be on the line. Do you really need to be mean in that moment? So, and I do get that take. I definitely understand that take. Everyone that's pretty much under Toranaga's fief at this point, all of his vassals, all of his subjects, whatever you want to call them, they're all pretty much believing that they are all going to be slaughtered when they go to Osaka. And that's, again, It's one thing, Toranaga being the great tactician that he is and always having a plan up his sleeve, which I very much appreciate. But one thing that can kind of, be a disservice to Toranaga and to the morale of his men is him playing things a little too close to the chest every once in a while, to the point where it does kind of become a detriment on the morale of his people. And I think we see that a little bit in these last two episodes in particular, where some of the morale is getting a little bit shot with some of the characters. Everyone thinks that death is on the horizon. And even
Right.
so much with it kind of leading to the death of his son, where even his own son didn't really, had no idea of anything that Toranaga was planning, which ultimately led to his death when when a simple word to his son could have spared him, really. So playing things
Right.
close to the chest is smart in many reasons, but every once in a while it can be to your detriment.
I mean, this one until he did there was about 3 scenes where I gave the screen the finger, and the third one was at the very end, the Kaiser Soze moment. I don't know. I mean, that kind of dates me. The when he just shook off his cough and just walked out like everything was fine.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, fucking please give me a break. But the thing is, man, that it really, I don't know. I didn't, I didn't get it. I didn't get it.
Well, no, Kai's right there with you. He's, he's been screaming, Mariko is a Disney princess since episode 6, and I will scream it louder on every rooftop now. You go right ahead, man. Scream from the rooftops. That's what these streams are for.
Well, she was a bitch to Blackthorne too, and it was just a little saying, when she gave him back his whatever it was, his rudders or whatever, and he's like, since you're not with us anyway. It's like, really,
yes.
She had
she does
a couple
like
of
those little jabs every once in a while, doesn't she?
I don't know if she felt. I mean, if it's like she's doubling down on the loyalty talk just because she's feeling guilty because she isn't loyal.
Okay,
but it was just man.
It's just a lot of, I mean, and that's what's so good about a show like this. When a show like this can invoke that kind of response out of you, be it good or bad, again, that's the mark of just really good storytelling and good acting. And I love it, because we praise a lot of these episodes, but every once in a while there will be something that we do kind of maybe criticize a little bit, and that's totally fine. I mean, no one's ever going to like 100% of everything all the time. It's totally okay to not like a scene or two. So let your opinions be known, guys. All opinions are welcome here. You guys know that.
Oh yeah. And mine is entirely mine and mine alone. You're welcome to disagree if if you think I'm entirely off base. You're absolutely entitled to do so. And leave a comment in the in the comment section at the end. Tell me how wrong I am, but.
And again, I know we say it every week, but we want to know what you guys think as well. And as we're scrolling down here saying what is up to the chat, let me skip down to the bottom here in a second. And yes, let us know what you guys think. How did you guys like episode 8? How did you like the tea ceremony scene between Mariko and Bintaro? Did you guys go away from that scene feeling a little bit bad for Bintaro, or are you still very much team Mariko, like Scarlet is? And that is totally cool either way, no matter which side you fall on. Me, I feel like I don't like to play the fence sitter often, but I'm kind of on the fence a little bit. On one hand, I really feel bad for Bintaro in that one scene, but on the other hand, Mari, I don't know, man. I think I'm starting to lean a little bit more towards the other side now that I think about it, because Mariko's been kind of cold, and it wasn't just in this episode that she's been kind of cold. So whatever you guys think, all opinions are welcome, and we just want to hear what you guys think as well. Where was the selective outrage when he beat her? I doubt if it's I doubt if this was her first meeting, and that's another thing we don't really, well, at least the show doesn't really touch on how it seems like they didn't have a very happy relationship, but we don't know how unhappy it was. Was he beating her on the regular, or I get the feeling he wasn't. Probably it seems like that was mostly sake induced, but no, I believe we had plenty of outrage when he hit her after that episode. I believe we spent a good amount of time talking about that on that stream.
If he constantly was one of those type of men that constantly beat her, I think we definitely would have seen signs of that. I do think that was a one moment type of situation. It's not excusable. It's still
No.
not excusable no matter what it is. And no matter the time, the century, it's still a disgusting behavior. But it was, you could see like what as a, like he was so broken in that moment. Like he just got back from and like he wasn't even, she didn't welcome him home with open arms. Like I feel like he was always looking for a way in to her heart, and since she hated him from the beginning, she never let him in.
Mm. And Hand Drawn Life does bring up a very good point here as well. If you can still aim 2 arrows through the same damn hole, piss drunk, maybe leaning on the sake excuse might not be as good of an excuse as it appears to be. That's a very good point, Hand Drawn. I forgot
True.
about that. Yeah, even as piss drunk as he was still deadly accurate. So blaming it on the sake, it is a bit of a cop out. You're right about that. You're right.
Yeah.
I agree.
Touche.
She really, even in the moment of the tea scene, when he says, I'm gonna give you this death that we have together, she said, I don't want that with you. And I know that's cold. That's so cold and it's so mean. But what about, it's like, okay, well, she's supposed to just do whatever. She's supposed to just, like, she's still, even what was it, the first episode or so where it shows her and her son together, and he comes in and they're laughing and kind of having a good time, and he completely cuts them off. And it's like, why are you laughing with your mom? Like, he was rude too. Like,
he
if
treats the
you
kid
really
pretty
think
bad
back,
too, it
they didn't
seems.
seem like their relationship was ever as good as he wants it to be. He has it almost in the scene. The more I think about the tea scene and the things that were said between them, and I think back to the moments in previous episodes and flashbacks, he has this vision of what he wants with her, and I understand that, but she never wanted that, and she always wanted that when she assumed she was going to die with her family, kind of how Fuji thought she was going to die. She didn't get that. She just wanted to die and be dead with her family, and I get that. That doesn't mean that she's a great person or anything like that. It's just trying to understand that she really just did not want to be with him, and that it's as cold as that is. Even in death, she does not want to be tied to him, and he doesn't understand.
She doesn't even want to die with him at this point. Yeah, and that if that kind of does show you the the extent of the disdain that Mariko does really have for him, and that's a pretty good point, Scarlett, where she doesn't even want to die with him at this point. So that's a very good point.
And he's just thinking, oh, if I just give you this death, well, again, he's wanting to do it with her, and she's like, you still don't understand what it is I'm asking for. If you really love me, and I'm not saying that that's like a great thing to say. It's crazy me saying it like that, but she's like, if you really did love me, and you say you love me, then this is what I wanted. But again, it's still, she sees it as this is what he wants. He's wanting that control over her. And maybe that's just the way I see it from the way she said it. And like I said, I go back to that flashback. She was mad that she even had to go with him. Like, she was like, you're taking me from my friends. You're taking me from what I thought my family was going to be. And then now I have to be with this. And so it's just a hard time. And she even tells Toranaga in episodes past when asking about Oshiba, or I know I'm saying her name wrong, Ochiba, the mother of the heir. Ochiba.
Yeah.
That why was she acting the way she was acting? Because that's part of this episode too, and how she is turned into a monster because of what she has had to endure as a woman in this time. So I go to those scenes and try to understand what it is for the women in this time. And then I'm not saying at this episode I have a lot more heart for Buntaro than I did in previous episodes. I will say I don't hate him anymore. I don't have that like real hard disdain for him. I understand him better now, but I still understand Riko too. I understand where she's coming from.
Definitely. And again, I mean, just all around, it's just, from what it appears, it seems like it's just a very just toxic relationship. I don't like to use the word, I feel like the word toxic is overused a lot these days, but this right here is like the true definition of a really kind of toxic relationship that's been going on between the two of them. And yeah, I feel like, they've both been in the wrong, in some of the scenes that we've seen. And, but one thing, like I said, it's always good having these discussions, and I love seeing where everybody is falling on on the issue. And that's what makes shows like this fun, where we can kind of dive in and have these spirited debates every once in a while. You guys are killing it in the chat and on the panel, loving it. And Mo brings up a great point. This is why I have crack smoking ceremonies instead of tea. No room for miscommunication. I guess it does kind of cut out the miscommunication, if nothing else. That's a good point. Very good point. And yes, absolutely, Hand-Drawn Life. If you want to bring some things up that have happened in the book up until this point, it is totally cool to compare and contrast, as Ravener says here. If something has happened a little bit differently in the book and it's already been past that point on the show, then absolutely, we can definitely talk about it. The only thing we try to avoid are future book spoilers. But anything that's happened in the book up until this point is fair game. Absolutely, you can talk about it. He loves her, but resents the fact that she is Akachi's daughter. That is a good point as well. I mean, there's a saying that has been in my family for many generations, and that is, a drunk tongue speaks a sober mind. And yeah, you can just see when Bintaro starts to get a little tipsy, a lot of the truth that he was kind of holding on to really starts to come out. And he really starts to, we see how he kind of views Mariko with her, regarding her line as a disgusting, filthy line and all that. So yeah, her being Akachi's daughter definitely probably factors into his disdain for her. That's a good point, Michael. Very good point.
Yeah. But the people who hate Bintaro, at least you got to see him chop his own father's head off, in this episode. So, maybe the guy's paying off.
All I thought in that moment was a Fuji.
I know,
right.
man.
I know.
Someone brought it up in the chat. Someone brought it up in the chat earlier. If there's one character that definitely deserves a happy ending, and I'm sorry, I forget who brought this up in the chat. I know somebody did earlier, but yeah, if there's one character that really deserves a happy ending and has done no wrong up until this point, it is definitely Fuji. She's as good can get in this time period, I would say. But yeah, Hand-Drawn Life also brings up a good point as well. Buntaro is sadly shaped by his culture. He's definitely very much a product of his time. Mm-hmm. And again, it kind of goes back to that, that clashing of the cultures, where what we're seeing here is just a totally different lifestyle and a way of life than the way of life that we know today. So yeah, he very much is a product of his time. But yeah, he's kind of a shit human at times as well. So very good point, Hand-Drawn. Very good point.
But didn't Mariko's father marry her off to him because he really wanted to save her life?
Yes.
Like, wasn't that the whole point of it?
That was the point. That was his reason for doing it, yes. But at the time, he never told her any of that. So from Mariko's point of view, she just sees her father abandoning her to a marriage that she doesn't want. She's being abandoned by her father into a loveless marriage is kind of how she thought she saw it. When really, yes, he was doing it to try and keep her safe and get her as far away from the rest of the family as possible, knowing what he was about to do. But yeah, from Mariko's point of view, all she sees is her father abandoning her to, a man she's never going to love. So I can definitely see both sides for sure. And Buntaro does, yeah, we do see this brought up in a few episodes back as well, when Buntaro is talking to Toranaga, where Buntaro was expecting her to be grateful that he spared her life pretty much, and really it's been quite the opposite. So yeah, that's a pretty good point, Sweet Pea. Buntaro was kind of just expecting her to be grateful that he saved her life and kind of be the dutiful wife from that point on, when really she's dealing with this just incredible tragedy that just happened, losing her father, her entire family, feeling like she's been abandoned. So you can totally see why her heart has started to, grow a little cold over the years. Again, it's just a really bad relationship from top to bottom, these two, and you kind of sympathize with both of them at times, for sure. I do anyway. I sympathize with both of them at times. Bad relationship all around. Just a bad relationship. Let's see what else we got. Devil's Advocate. We didn't see the fight. Maybe she slapped him for the arrow stun and they were away from others. I mean, I suppose it's possible. I mean, it doesn't seem like Mariko's style, personally. She doesn't seem like she's that kind of person to kind of just, go off cuff and start beating on Buntaro. It seemed like that was kind of him, but then again, we don't know. We didn't really see how that scene started, so who knows? Who knows? And she does kind of act this way solely towards him. She's been a little cold towards Blackthorne at times, but for the most part, she's kind of generally pleasant with most of the other people that she meets. But yeah. And yeah, as Michael Lockhart brings up, we definitely did get a pretty big book change from show to book in this episode with Hiromatsu, noble Hiromatsu. Let's move on from Buntaro and Mariko for a minute. I feel like we got a lot of other stuff to get through in this episode. Let's talk a little bit about Hiromatsu and his incredibly brave and noble sacrifice. And again, I know I say it all the time. I'm a huge stickler for dialogue. I love good dialogue. Nothing gets me out of a show quicker than bad dialogue. And the dialogue in this scene was just really, really great. Seeing this back and forth between Toranaga and Hiromatsu, it was played so well for something that was later kind of revealed to be, theater, for lack of better terms, which is how they kind of referred to it in the podcast, that everything leading up to Hiromatsu's death was theater, for lack of better terms, is kind of how they described it. But up until that point, until we get that actual reveal, I mean, even though a part of me always thought that Toranaga was not going to give up, that he always was going to kind of pull some kind of plan out of his ass last minute, I mean, I couldn't help but wonder at certain points in this episode if he was truly wanting to give up here. And again, this scene between Hiromatsu and him, absolutely insane. And again, it really shows how brutal the ritual of seppuku it really is. I know we saw it, on display in a few episodes prior with the flashback to Toranaga winning his first victory. But again, I really love how this show is really not sparing any expense, and they're really kind of showing the gruesome side to some of these rituals, where death can also, I know we talked about this with Nagakado, but death can also be, often be portrayed as this kind of beautiful thing, this noble thing to attain, this beautiful death, this honorable death, when in all actuality, the real death is often much more bloody and brutal than the idea of a beautiful death really is. And yeah, this scene was just absolutely gut-wrenching. Gut-wrenching.
And I thought I thought the goal was to sacrifice the other generals, the ones that wore the armor to the funeral. I thought those were the guys that should have been on the chopping block. And then Hiromatsu put himself, out front of them kind of. And I think that's how it kind of escalated. It kind of like snowballed from there, where neither of these guys could back down. In that scene, it was an amazing scene, and it was such a gut punch and sad. And, I was just like, just amazed. The one thing, and this is another part where I think they made the mistake. And the thing is, this happened, I think, at the 50-minute point of the episode. If they'd have ended the episode after Hiromatsu's head rolled, that would have been the perfect ending for that episode. It would have been. Yeah. And they went on to that stupid crap where they're doing the poetry slam. Him and Mariko are doing a poetry slam, and it's like, just fucking shut up and whatever. That's it's just like, and then I don't care about her secret mission. Who, it's like, whatever. Two people that I couldn't give a shit. That's where I think. Honestly, I think that's why I'm so down on this episode, is because these characters that were built up. Because we like heroic characters. We like, even like, a Sherlock Holmes or something, smarter than everybody, sees things that other people don't see, figures things out. They're a step ahead. And that's how Toranaga was this whole time. Awesome. A great guy, but I think, and that happened to both Toranaga and Mariko in this thing. You can be a heroic character because, even when other people aren't virtuous, you are virtuous. You do the right thing. You succeed through your own, superior intellect, your own superior skills, but you're also good. He basically just became, like I said, House of Cards. That's what it reminded me of. The Kevin Spacey political thing. He's just a CEO. He's just a politician now, as dirty and nasty and backstabby as anybody else, and that bullshit he was spouting about Hiromatsu, it's like, oh, he did his duty to the end. Again, it's these guys that are all about, they love when other people do their duty, when it's time for them to do their, when it's time for them, he's all about Hiramatsu doing his duty when it served his own goals.
Okay.
But it's like a morality for, I love it when other people are moral. I don't need to be moral. I don't have to have ethics, and I can be backstabby and sacrifice my oldest friend. As long as I get what I want. It's like psychotic. So yeah, that was the second death. There were 3 deaths in here. It was Hiramatsu, and the death of Toranaga, and the death of Mariko as characters. I'm still invested in the story. I still want to see what happens. I still like Fuji. I want to see what happens to her. There's some other characters, and who really stepped forward? Omi. Man, Omi.
Omi had some great scenes in this episode that surprised me.
Yeah. So especially when those old heads were all ripping on Nagakado, and he stepped up and said, "Hold on now," So good for him.
Yeah, that was a really great scene too. We see very early on in the episode. The episode starts off and they're just arriving in Edo, and of course, one of the first things they do is prepare a funeral procession for Nagakado, of course. And yeah, this was actually one of my favorite scenes of the entire episode. Actually, everyone just kind of chopping it up, sharing some old stories, and yeah, you hear Buntaro say he was truly courageous, and we hear Matsu say he was reckless. He was a foolish, stupid kid, or something along those lines. But I really did like you said, Omi kind of stepped up in this moment, had some really great lines, really good sentiment towards Nagakado, and I have to imagine Omi must feel, in at least in a small way, kind of responsible for Nagakado's death, if nothing else.
Yeah.
I mean, Omi has to know that his manipulation of Nagakado definitely played a part in Nagakado choosing to confront his uncle in that scene. So Omi must be feeling a little bit of guilt as well. And you get a few shots of him in this scene, in this episode, not just this scene, but the entire episode, where he does kind of almost have that look of guilt on his face. If you look at the very beginning of the episode, when they're actually doing the funeral and they're actually at the pyre burning Nagakado's remains, there's one shot of Omi, and you really see like he's almost crying in that scene. And I do get the sense that he probably feels some measure of guilt, having a small hand in Nagakado's death, kind of pushing him into the wrong direction. But yeah, he had some great scenes, really great scenes.
Yeah, and he stood up for, he stood up kind of for himself and for Nagakado, while these old guys were clowning on him and talking about all the embarrassing moments. I don't know if that was supposed to be, in their culture, in their tradition, if like it would have supposed to have been a roast, kind of like, all the embarrassing stories of Nagakado's lives and that kind of stuff. But yeah, I was happy with him, and even what's his name, Buntaro stepped forward. The one thing he did say is, he was brave, but Hiramatsu was he was reckless. But
yeah, it was good. And even with that scene of Omi with Kiku, over in when Gin is looking at the land that Toranaga has gifted her for the new Willow World in Edo. Even in that scene, you see, just the doubt on Omi's, not only the doubt on his face, but even in his words as well, where he straight up says he doesn't even know what he's fighting for anymore. He feels, and that's, again, it all goes back to playing things a little too close to the chest, while smart at times, can be very detrimental to your soldiers' morale at the end of the day. If all of your soldiers around you are 100% thinking that you are just giving up, not only on yourself, but you're giving up on all of them as well. And that's why I love that line from Hiramatsu, where you're throwing away everything that we have fought for, not just you have fought for, everything we have fought for as well. So again, I love how Toranaga is the kind of master tactician, and he's always thinking 10 steps ahead. But again, being as untrusting as he is and playing everything just a little too close to the chest, sometimes we're seeing a little bit of the drawbacks from that, where it can have a really, really negative effect on the morale of your men if they are just constantly thinking you're about to give up on them, and in turn, a lot of them are going to die along with him. It's going to affect morale, and I feel like we're seeing that on Omi more than anyone in this episode, where he's at the point now where he doesn't even realize what he's fighting for anymore. So playing things close to the chest can be good at times, but at other times it can be a hindrance. We're seeing here.
Yeah,
for sure.
But they would have attacked the city they were in, though, right? If he didn't go, if Toranaga didn't go with them after the 49 days.
Exactly what his generals tried to bring up to him. He said, they'll attack the city of Osaka. Toranaga says they'll destroy Osaka, and his general says, let them try. And yes, exactly. If Ishido and the forces of Osaka want to bring Toranaga to justice, they would have to march all the way to Edo, contract a long siege and all of that. Yes, it wouldn't have been it wouldn't have been a simple, easy defeat on Toranaga's side. So, and I think Raven and I touched on this a little bit before we went live, where that's a little bit of the kind of, where Hiromatsu's death kind of, was a little annoying to us on some degrees. I love seeing the loyalty from him, and, just that great, really emotional scene between him and Toranaga there at the end. But yeah, I feel like if Toranaga's ultimate goal is to convince Osaka that he is really giving up, I just feel like there are so many other ways they could have gone about doing that didn't require Hiromatsu sacrificing himself, basically. All of your own men already think you're giving up. It's not much of a stretch to think that Osaka probably thinks you're giving up as well. So, for me, I can, that kind of played a factor into Hiromatsu's death for me. As beautiful a death as it was, I feel like it probably could have been avoided if your sole goal is just to convince Osaka that you really are giving up. I feel like this was a very extreme way of going about that.
I agree with that.
Like, wasn't his sickness even, like, was that fake too? Because at the very end, when he kind of walked out, I was like, man, is he playing like this magician the whole time? Like, really this whole episode, he was just like completely like screwing everybody. Didn't let like the whole thing, his whole like personality, the whole episode was off. But then at like the very last second,
funeral, he didn't even show up to the funeral. Wow.
But then like the very end, he's like, this was all part of my plan. I was like, what magician trick is this?
What are you talking about? What do you mean your plan? What?
Like, did he have to give up so much to convince Ishido that he was giving up? Like, that's the question that like stayed in the back of my mind. Like, I get it. I get you want to convey that you're really giving up. But if you're going to give up all the people who would stand by you in the moment when you need them to, what's the point?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, how do you expect anybody to come to your side then when they know that you literally sacrificed everything around you for this moment? Like, that's the only part of the whole episode that confused me. Like, was the sacrifice too great for the cause he's setting out to fight?
Well, I wonder, he didn't expect him to do it though, right? Like, I was under the impression he was getting them all to sign their names so they could all surrender together for his 2-part Crimson Sky plan, but nobody knew it, and they thought he was seriously like giving up. And so guys like, well, I'm calling your bluff, and it just didn't go the way Toranaga wanted it to. That was the way I took it.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It was kind of confusing.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was, and that was one thing the show didn't really portray too well. Was the death of Hiromatsu something that Hiromatsu and Toranaga discussed prior? Was this just one big plan, or did Hiromatsu along the way kind of pick up on what Toranaga was really intending and just do it anyway? Because we do get that one scene between Toranaga and Mariko at the end of the episode where Toranaga states that Hiromatsu, he knew his duty very well, almost implying like that maybe they didn't even really discuss it ahead of time, and this was something that Hiromatsu kind of just went ahead and did, kind of sussing out Toranaga's real intention, maybe even during that conversation. That was one thing the show didn't really convey too well, whether or not this was one plan that they talked about prior, or whether this was something that was improv that Hiromatsu did in the moment because he saw an opportunity. So yeah, the show wasn't very clear on that.
So it would have been like, okay, so he didn't know, and then he was calling his bluff, and then he figured out, okay, he's really got a plan. So he told his son, like, basically be with him no matter what, even when he's messing up. Like, always like trying to give him a message. That was very confusing though. I have to try to piece that together.
The wording was very interesting that Hiromatsu used in that moment. Don't give up on our Lord, even when it appears that he's giving up on himself.
Right.
Gotcha. Okay, maybe now I understand that whole scene just a little bit better.
Yeah. It was, I mean, it was, that was one thing I kind of went away from the episode, kind of debating. Was this something that Hiromatsu and him discussed prior, or was this something that kind of happened in the moment because Hiromatsu, again, kind of saw an opportunity there? And yeah, will Bintaro serve Toranaga and still be loyal, or will he be traumatized and resent him now? That's a good question, Leo. I mean, I feel like it could go either way, but I feel like I feel like he probably will honor his father's wishes and stay loyal to Toranaga. But it could go either way, though. That's a good question. What do you guys think? That's a great question for the panel and for the chat. Going forward here, do you think Buntaro is going to honor his father's wishes and stay loyal to Toranaga? Or do you think some doubt is going to creep in? Do you think this could ultimately, maybe the trauma will be just too much for him to serve Toranaga going forward? I think he'll still stay loyal, but I could definitely see it maybe going both ways.
I could see him snapping, man. Between the stuff, like when he went to Toranaga and asked permission to take Blackthorne's head and got basically clowned and sent away. At every turn, every time Buntaro goes to Toranaga, Buntaro ends up leaving with his tail between his legs, and now he had to second his cutting his father's head off. If anybody's going to go postal, it would be Buntaro, and it would be justified. But the thing is, I don't see how. I mean, I don't see how he would act out. And the thing is that he is his father's son. That's the thing. I saw. I mean, I know people who are Buntaro haters aren't going to like it, but I saw when Hiromatsu, and Buntaro were together. It's like, wow, okay, yeah, they're two peas in a pod. It's a chip off the old block. So I liked, and that's why I didn't mind Buntaro so much. And I loved Hiromatsu when he was alive, and I love Fuji. I love that whole family. But yeah, so I don't see him. I mean, he would be entirely justified, and I wouldn't be surprised or wouldn't blame him if he did. But man, I see him running true blue to Toranaga.
Yeah, I kind of leaned a little bit more that way myself as well. What about you, Scarlett? You think Buntaro will remain loyal after his father's death, or you think he will? Could he potentially snap?
I mean, yeah, Ravener said it pretty well. He's set up to even commit some sort of like Sudoku. I know I'm not saying it right, but this Sudoku, Sudoku. But yeah, he's probably going to remain loyal because I don't see him turning from that. That was the one thing about his character that seemed to be like his heroic side. He was to the death. He was loyal all the way back at the beginning. So I don't see him turning, but if anything, I mean, maybe he would just, end it for himself. But I don't see him like going after Toranaga or anything like that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. What about you, Dana? Where do you think Buntaro's head's going to be at? Will he stay loyal to Toranaga?
I personally think he's going to stay loyal just because look at what he put Mariko through for her father being unloyal. So for him to have such disdain for someone else to be disloyal and then to turn around and be disloyal doesn't make sense to who I think he kind of is. But will the thought be there? Will he be thinking about it? Absolutely. But I think in the end, he is not bred for disloyalty.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I imagine once he and the rest of Toranaga's men finally find out that Toranaga really isn't going to give up and this all was one big ruse, I wonder how that is going to play in it. If Buntaro is going to think, okay, my father's sacrifice kind of, it convinced Toranaga to not give up. Or is he going to find out that it was all one big ruse and my father died just to kind of sell a lie, for lack of better terms? So, yeah, he's got some thinking to do, I guess. But I think he's going to remain loyal, mostly myself as well. And Michael Lockhart believes that it wasn't audible. It wasn't audible. He sacrificed himself so the others didn't die. And I kind of am leaning a little bit towards that way myself. I want it to be that they kind of discussed this prior and this was all one big master plan. I kind of get the sense that this was kind of something that happened just on the fly, where Hiromatsu saw an opportunity and took it to not only save Toranaga, but to save the other men as well, because you saw for a second there, they were starting to like reach for their swords at one point. And again, it kind of all goes back to Toranaga just playing things a little too close to the chest sometimes at the expense of maybe even some of his own men, his own soldiers' loyalty. And we see that even during the funeral here, where some of his men are blatantly wearing armor during the funeral procession, as in protest of Toranaga's orders, which is something that has a huge cultural significance in real world feudal Japan. If you saw your prized generals showing up to a funeral wearing their armor, that was usually a sign of disrespect, or a sign of they were not really they're not in line with the orders that their lord is giving. So it's I love how they sprinkle these little historical accurate details within the series from time to time. Something as simple as them wearing armor at a funeral really has a much deeper symbolic meaning.
Right.
Yeah,
a guy in the middle, I think man, that guy bugged me the whole episode. I think his beard's fake. It looked crooked.
It's so fake. It's such a fake beard. Yeah.
I was like mad. It bugged me so much.
Yeah, a little. You could definitely tell it's not House of the Dragon season 1 wig fake, but definitely fake. For sure.
Yeah, no, that was funny.
Yeah. And Hiromatsu choosing Buntaro as a second was intentional. Him saying, "You will know what it is to be denied," was him saying, "You have your duties first and cannot die," more than it was for Mariko. And that was one of the first things I kind of took away from that scene. I was like, all right, is this Hiromatsu's way of kind of giving Buntaro a taste of his own medicine, saying, "You will be denied just like you have been denying Mariko all this time"? I do think that was part of it as well, but I do think the other thing was a part of it as well, Kai, as you bring up, that this was him kind of insinuating to his son that he needs to still do his duty after this. But that was just such a good line where he looks over at his son. He said, "You will now know what it is to be denied." And I instantly thought of Mariko, with him denying Mariko the death that she's wanted for all these years. So very good observation, man. Very good. Everything Hiromatsu said to Buntaro was a way of appealing to him that the plan was still on. Interesting. And another reason why I tend to agree with Michael and the rest of you that think that the Hiromatsu suicide was kind of just an audible and was kind of improv instead of really being planned out is we get that one scene earlier in the episode when Toranaga is seemingly, still sticking to his guns and, deciding to give up. But it seems like Hiromatsu was picking up on this way before everybody else was. But the first thing he says when he comes out of that meeting is he's going to fight. He never would have sent Father Martin to Osaka with that message otherwise. So the more I kind of think about it, the more I tend to agree with you guys that I think the sacrifice was it wasn't planned out ahead of time. I don't think Toranaga and him actually really discussed this ahead of time. This seems like it was Hiromatsu's just having really, really good intuition and knowing Toranaga better than anybody else, seeing an opportunity to help Toranaga and save men's lives at the same time. The more I analyze it, the more I am definitely starting to agree with you guys. I think that this thing was one big audible, and it seems like Hiromatsu was picking up on it long before everybody else did. So
right. Well, I remember Kai earlier in the chat. Kai had a really good point though. When Hiromatsu comes out and he tells all those guys he's going to fight in front of all these people, and then when they did the reverse view, when the friars walking away, they did let the camera linger a little bit on like the two women that were standing nearby, and it didn't occur to me. I thought it was just like what. But the notion that there might be spies. So he kind of spoke out of turn saying he's going to fight in front of all those people. So it kind of, it kind of forced him to do something to reinforce that Toranaga was going to surrender, because, if there were spies there, if he goes and says he's going to fight in front of all those people, including spies, including ladies in waiting or house attendants, any one of which could have been a spy. If that gets back to Osaka, that ruins the whole ruse of Toranaga that he's going to surrender. So they had to do something to double reinforce that he really was going to surrender. So he kind of played himself a little bit.
A little bit. You're absolutely right. Yeah. We have a $5 super chat from Leo V. Thank you so much, Leo V, for the super chat. Thank you. Since the beginning of the series, Yabu always was fascinated with death. Can you give us your thoughts, Jeremy? Why his character is infatuated how people die? Very good question, indeed, and thank you for the super chat. And yes, I mean, I can only give my limited take on what I know about the character. I know a little bit of Yabushigi, him kind of being not obsessed with death, but having that kind of, that fascination with it, where we do get that scene between Kiku, Yabushigi way earlier on in the episode. And that is kind of brought up where, death is kind of the only thing that can make him feel alive at certain times. And I know I think a part of it probably stems back to his childhood and his father. Because from what I know about Yabushigi's father, his father used to boil people alive all the time. Like that was his main form of execution, was boiling people alive. So I think part of his upbringing, being so close to his father, might have rubbed off on him in some way, where he has this kind of weird fascination with death all of a sudden. At least that's just kind of my quick observation. But I would love to know what the chat and the rest of the panel thinks as well. Why do you think Yabushigi has such a fascination with death, Ravener?
Dude, I don't know. I had to assume that there is some kind of
could it just be him wanting to always stay in control of his own fate, like we saw in that very first episode with him on the cliff, not wanting to kind of die drowning? He pulls out his sword, and which is something we see Blackthorne and him talk about later on in this episode. Maybe that's part of it as well, where he just always wants to be in control of his own fate. But sorry for interrupting.
Oh, no. I think unless there was something that you guys knew, like in the book, or if they explained it better, I just thought he was almost like a fetishist, like kind of like a freako fetishist, because he was talking about on the very beginning of this episode when they were talking about,
I love that line.
Like, worse than boiling, but better than eaten by dogs.
Yep.
Right. And it's like, so he's just ranking, how to kill people. It's like, it might just be his thing, especially if he's, has a book of lists of, ways to go. Maybe he's collecting them, and the way he had that guy boiling for as long as possible, he wanted to extend it and to hear the screams and that kind of stuff. That is a straight up sadist, a weirdo. So yeah, I think that's that's just another facet of his character.
Just being fascinated with death. What about you, Scarlett? Do you think there's a deeper meaning there to him being fascinated with death? What's your take on Yabushigi and his kind of affinity for death? And always, like you said, he's even recording in his book how people die, ranking it. It's pretty funny, if nothing else.
Yeah, I mean, it just seems like a sicko fetish kind of thing. Because
maybe
pretty much what Ravener said. Yeah, because he's into it in a way that's not just like trying to understand or control your own fate. It's like he's into seeing how people die more than it is his own death. Like, because otherwise, why would you just want to take yourself out, with your sword? If that's the only way you're going to go out. Why care about the million ways that someone could die? The 1,000, what was that show? 1,000 Ways to Die.
Maybe there's a little bit of kind of sociopathic tendencies to his character as well. Maybe he doesn't kind of feel the depth of emotion that maybe everybody else does. That's a good point, Sweet Pea. Very good point. But he's just a sicko that likes to watch people die. Just another day and another will, as Michael Lockhart puts it. Indeed. And 100%. I just want Yabushigi's crow feathered coat. It's so stylish. He really does. He's got some of the best get up in the entire show. I love that freaking coat that he wears. It is pretty awesome. I'm not gonna lie. I'd wear that to work any day. Hello, Tower Tokyo. Hello from Japan. Welcome. So glad to have you here. So glad to have everybody here on this Wednesday night here in the States, whatever day, night, and time it is. Everybody, everywhere else around the world. We are so glad to have everybody here hanging out with us and talking a little bit of Shōgun. We love hearing your thoughts and your theories as to what you guys think about the series. So definitely keep your thoughts coming, guys. We love hearing it. And yeah, he was also the bad guy in 47 Ronin. Yeah, the actor Tatenobu Asano, and yeah, I hear people talking about the other roles that he was in. Yes, he was in Thor as well. He was one of the Warriors 3. And another, if you like the character of Yabushigi and you like the acting performance that he is putting on, one movie I would probably recommend watching is a movie called The Outsider. It's on Netflix. It's starring him and Jared Leto. It's a story about Jared Leto is a World War II prisoner right after the World War II has ended. He's still a prisoner in Japan, a POW, and he ends up saving Tatenobu Asano's character's life inside prison, who just happens to be a very high-ranking member of the Yakuza. So it's a really nice kind of, it's very similar to this, where you have Blackthorne coming into this foreign land and trying to learn all of these foreign ways, and he's very much an outsider. It's very similar to the Outsider movie, where Jared Leto is trying to navigate this new world as he is becoming a member of the Yakuza, and becoming friends with Tatenobu Asano's character. So if you guys like Shogun, I would highly recommend checking out The Outsider as well. It's such a good movie, and it's really dives deep into some of the traditions and customs of the Yakuza, if nothing else. But yeah, great actor indeed. Or just, yeah, maybe he's just a psychopath, as Doc Hayes says. And yeah, I have no shame. I watch all of Keanu's films. I'm a huge Keanu Reeves fan. I mean, there's not many Keanu Reeves movies I haven't seen as well. So yeah, if you're a Keanu fan, you are in the right place, my friend. I love Keanu stuff. He's great. Great stuff. Yabu did good at a movie, Mongol, Genghis Khan. Oh, did he? He played Genghis. Oh, interesting. I'll have to look that up. I will have to look that up. And I watch all of Sonata's films. So nice to see him shine. It's a crush. And again, he's one of my favorite actors of all time. I love Hiroyuki Sanada, and I feel like he was born to play this role. Like the role of Toranaga, I cannot picture anybody else in this role in this series. Obviously, it was portrayed very well in the miniseries in the 80s, but this iteration of Toranaga at this time period in this series, with today's actors, I just can't picture anybody else other than Sanada playing this role. And out of all of the great roles that he will most likely be known for the rest of his life, Last Samurai, all of the great stuff that he's been in, I do get the feeling that this will most likely be the project that he is most known for. This is his magnum opus, as far as I'm concerned. I feel like this is the best performance he's ever given, which is something saying him. I feel like he's great in everything. I absolutely loved him, and I know Dana did as well. We loved him in Lost. I loved his Lost character. Dogen. Dogen was so freaking cool, right? But I do think this is going to be the project that so good. I know. But yeah, I do think this is going to be the project that he is most remembered for. This does seem like it is his magnum opus, for lack of better terms, for sure. Great stuff. But yeah, let's see what else we got here. Yeah, the acting is outstanding. They were all in the moment for that death scene. Yeah, again, I mean, I know we praise it week in and week out, but yeah, the acting performances from every single one of these actors and characters has been freaking phenomenal. Not often do we see a cast that is just is this well-rounded and has this much chemistry. I feel like there's a lot of really good chemistry between a lot of these actors and actresses when they're on screen, which is interesting because some of the least chemistry I see is actually between Blackthorne and Mariko. As much as I kind of want to root for Blackthorne and Mariko at times, I feel like the actors playing Blackthorne and Mariko, they just don't really have that kind of chemistry, that spark that you would want to see, in a love interest on a show. And that's one thing.
Right.
In this version of Shogun, they haven't really played the love affair between Blackthorne and Mariko up a little bit. That's definitely been like a side story at most, and they're definitely more focusing on the kind of trappings of power and the political savviness of the characters. It's not really as much of a love story as I thought it was going to be, I guess.
Yeah, I was really doubting it. I mean, because I assumed in the 1980s version that it was a lot hotter. This one here, it's very, very cool. Very, I don't know if we're supposed to, somewhere hidden in that eightfold fence is all this like simmering passion, or restraint and all this, the inner turmoil and stuff, but I'm not getting hardly any of it. Oh, and thank you, Rooftop Korean. I was just going to bring that up. Blackthorne, there's a few scenes. I was going to bring up that the one good thing about this show, among other things, is the setup and callback and payoff. They set up something, then they call back to it, or then they pay it off later. And I was asking the other day about what's going to happen when they send Mariko to Osaka. What's Blackthorne going to do without his interpreter? And I'll be damned if they didn't just settle that. And that was the sole purpose of that scene, was it wasn't about charcoal or whatever, or lotuses. It was to establish that, oh my gosh, here's Blackthorne has a certain level of proficiency, if not fluency, in Japanese, even though later we find him sitting, looking around while people are discussing. And, if he was able to talk about stuff like charcoal, one would think that has enough proficiency to understand some of the other terms and words that were being thrown around in his presence that maybe he didn't think. And the other funny thing was the scene with the priest in Toranaga's thing, where he disallowed the priest to speak Japanese. Which was another strange one. And then, but at the same time, as he's walking out, he does grant he said that the priest held up his end of the bargain, so he is going to grant that church. So it's like, wow, okay. Just kind of strange.
Yeah, but he got his dig in. He put the church right next to the.
He did. I was going to say that was my favorite scene.
He gave him that land, but he was like, "You're going to be right next door to the courtesans and everything else. So you're going to get what you want, but I'm going to make that dig."
It was good. It was a good setup and payoff.
I know, and here I am. I'm going to be the outlier again. That's another one where I flipped the TV off. I was like, oh, wah wah. I was like, all that was missing was a sad trombone sound. It's like, okay, sick burn, bro. Because they.
Who's my name? Who are those people over there? Oh,
the courtesans. They're your neighbors.
Oh God! Whatever.
The priest was just like, "What? Huh?
Yeah.
What do you mean?"
So funny there. I was laughing.
And I feel like scenes like that are very much needed, especially in an episode like this, where most of the episode is very serious and kind of somber in tone, and really kind of depressing at times. The tone of this episode was. I love that they're still kind of throwing in those moments of levity, those comedic moments of levity here and there. We get it in the beginning with Yabushigi having the line about ranking the death, whether it's better or worse than being eaten by dogs. And then this scene as well, like much like you guys and Michael and everybody else in the chat who enjoyed it, I laughed my ass off at that scene when here he is, he's getting presented with this great plot. Toranaga, you're very lucky that Toranaga gave you this plot. It's one of the best places in the city. And then boom, 20 yards away, boom, there are the courtesans setting up shop right next to the church. So sticking it to the church like that, trolling the church, in lack of a better term, it's a feudal Japan troll, if nothing else. It was good. That was a very fun scene.
Especially because they didn't honor their end of the deal. He's like, well, I tried. And I get it. Like, dude, okay, you like us, but you didn't really honor your deal. But it's fine. We'll give you your church.
Yeah.
You're just going to get a little added bonus with your church.
Just a little something extra. You're getting the church, but you're also getting a whorehouse 20 feet away. So you get what you get. That was freaking hilarious. That was a great scene. I do agree with Sweet Pea here a little bit as well. And like I said, again, as much as I love the scenes between Blackthorne and Yabushige, it was a little disappointing to see how quick Blackthorne, kind of just gave up on Toranaga and kind of went running off and trying to find new alliances. Now, I get it. This has been kind of Blackthorne's character's MO up until this point. One thing he does not want to do is die here in Japan. So ever since the very beginning, he's done pretty much anything and everything he has to in order to stay alive. So I get him trying to maneuver in the 23rd hour to try and create a better future for himself. But it was a little disappointing to see just how quick he was to kind of turn on Toranaga and run to Yabushigi. Like I said, as much as I love the scenes between Yabushigi and Blackthorne, I agree with Sweet Pea a little bit. It was a little disappointing to see that.
It's kind of like I'm sorry.
Oh,
Go
go
ahead.
ahead. I was gonna say, well, Toranaga did it to himself, though. I mean, he kept
He's playing
Blackthorne
things too
on the
close to the
shelf.
chest. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
and I mean, and if nothing else, Blackthorne is a man of action. He wants to do something. He's not one of those. If then it's like the reason I brought up the charcoal scene, to establish that he spoke Japanese. They had another fill-in scene, which was when Blackthorne met his Dutch friend, and that kind of like basically that scene almost served no purpose, but it did kind
Well, it
of
did.
like
I
set
think
a
that shit. I
counterpoint.
think.
Yeah, that's
I
what
mean,
I was gonna say.
well, it did.
Well,
I mean,
no, I think that. Sorry, go ahead.
it was to establish that Blackthorne no longer feels, he can see the barbarity in his European counterparts
Yes.
as well.
He doesn't have a
So
place anywhere anymore. He feels. Yeah. Totally
yeah,
agree. Totally
but
agree.
he was
And
just
that
like,
was another thing. He's been fighting all freaking season to try and get back to his crew, to get his ship. All season, that's been like his main goal. Let me get back to my crew. Let me get my ship so we can, continue on our mission. And yeah, here he is, finally getting, to reunite with his crew. And it was, the reunion that he certainly did not have in mind. Where at one point, if you see him, he's walking up to his crew member, and he almost, well, he not almost, he tries to turn around before he even gets there. Like he kind of has a change of heart and doesn't even want to reunite with them. At one point, he's walking towards them, and he just turns around, and then boom, his man spots him. But yeah, no, I agree 100%. If anything, this scene did, for me anyway, it definitely conveyed that Blackthorne feels like he doesn't have a place anywhere. He knows that he knows that Japan isn't where he belongs. He knows he will never fully be accepted here. But now he feels like he doesn't even feel, at home with his own men now. Even his own men feel quote unquote strange to him, as he says to Yabushigi there. So yeah, if nothing else, that scene kind of established that where Blackthorne, he's at the point in time where he just feels like he doesn't fit in anywhere.
yeah. And the funny thing is, though, also what he was telling to his the Dutch guy, it was almost the exact same thing that he told to Mariko when he was talking about. He's like, "Well, we'll careen it, we'll scrape it, we'll get it ready, we'll get the ship ready. Not a crew we could train." Da, da, da. He wants to get back onto the sea. That's where he wants to get back to those endless horizons with no beginning and no end. That's where he feels at home, and that's the only way I think he was, at least I think he feels that that's the only way he's going to be happy, is to go back to the one thing that he knows that he loves, which is the the boundless horizons.
Yeah, that's the one thing, one place that he feels, true freedom, where he doesn't have to think about the future. He doesn't have to think about his past. He's kind of solely just living in the present. And that only happens for him when he's at sea. So yeah, it's a very good point. He's trying to get back onto his boat. He's trying to get back onto the open water. And, at this point, he's just spent so much time in Japan. He spent so much time with Toranaga and Mariko and all of them that he himself has changed. And he even views his own people as kind of strange and probably a little bit barbaric even. If the ending of the scene is any indication, where he just completely, almost practically kills this dude. I don't know if this dude's even alive.
I know. The other thing that was strange, though, is that guy came at him pretty hard. He's like, was there even really Spanish? If he'd have been a little more subtle, I mean, if he had not gone right at Blackthorne, I wonder how that would have played out. Would they have like made amends? And obviously, I mean, I was thinking maybe they were resentful but the thing is, they were sitting there drinking and carousing for that whole time. Since they were put in that district or whatever. It's not like they were having a miserable time. He's acting like he's wasting away, but I mean, he's out there, drinking and chasing girls. It could be worse.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. I mean, yeah. It seems like they weren't prisoners at the very least. Yeah, I'm sure they weren't given the best of. They probably weren't treated with the best of hospitalities. But yeah, like you said, they weren't prisoners. They were able to kind of visit whorehouses as frequently as they wanted. So yeah, it was definitely a step up from the cage that they were thrown in Ajito when they first arrived here, if nothing else. So. Trey King brings up Rodriguez making a comeback, missing among the Portuguese in the trailer, and that was I brought this up in my review as well. Where if when I thought there's only 2 episodes left, so obviously there's a very select amount of scenes left that we are going to see. And I'll be really bummed if we don't at least just get one more scene between Blackthorne and Rodriguez. I feel like the banter between Blackthorne and Rodriguez has been so freaking gold, and we haven't seen him at all since like episode 3 or 4 was the last time we saw Rodriguez. He hasn't been in the show since. So part of me is really hoping we get at least just one more scene where we get some nice quippy banter between Blackthorne and Rodriguez. I'm not counting on it, but I'm hoping for it, if nothing else.
Yeah, I wonder how they'll fit it in.
Exactly, where they fit him in. Exactly. Unless the black ship comes back into play in some way, shape, or form. That's kind of the only narrative way I could think of them to bring him back.
Right.
But who knows? Who knows? I agree. Hand. If they were there to save souls, but nope, just control and money through damnation. Yeah, I mean, yeah. In terms of the Catholics coming to Japan, yeah, I mean that's the thing. Yeah, they're here to convert as many people as possible, but ultimately, the church is looking for power. It's an organization like any other. So you're right about that.
Yep.
Yeah. I think they established that Blackthorne has proven in the episodes he refuses to die. Absolutely. He didn't accept his fate when they put him in jail, abandoned on the galley, and now in surrendering. And again, that's why, like I've said in just about all of my reviews in some of the earlier episodes, I always kind of complimented and praised Blackthorne's his just determination, to never give up, determined to not die in this country. So you definitely get the sense that he will do anything to survive. So on one hand, I definitely understand him kind of looking for other alliances when he thinks Toranaga is giving up. It was just a little kind of sad to kind of see him give up that quick, I guess. But you totally understand that is his
I
character.
saw that scene a little differently. When he was going to Yabushigi for I didn't see it as a betrayal to Toranaga. I saw it as if he's going to give up, I'm not going to give up for him. Somebody's got to do something. We need to do something. Just because he's given up, we shouldn't give up because he gave up. Like, what are we going to do about this? I didn't so much see it as a betrayal as much as him standing up in his own way. Like, he's not doing something for himself, so now we have to do something for him. Because if it was all about life and him just trying to save his ass, so to speak, then get on your ship and go. Like, why are you going to Osaka? Why are you going to do that if you honestly didn't give a shit in a sense? Like, I kind of feel like he really thinks Toranaga is giving up, and he's like, I'm not going to give up. Just because he has, we have to do something. So I saw that scene a little differently. I didn't see it as a betrayal. I saw it as we're his people. He's given up on himself and everything else. We have to show him that he shouldn't give up. So let's go do something for him.
Right. And we saw that when he left the camp, when Toranaga was surrendering to Saiki. He's like, here, behold the great warlord, talks his subordinate, or tricks his people into a quiet smothering. And the word choice, I mean, the words that he used, and he knew that those wouldn't be translated. He did say "you're all dead" or something in Japanese, but the quiet smothering, for Blackthorne to say that, he kind of revealed the thing that he hates. He resents or despises people lying down and just taking it. The quiet smothering. That is the thing that's anathema to him, that he can't jibe in his mind, that he can't reconcile in his mind, that all these other guys seem to be fine with. So I could see him. I think Dana's exactly right. He's going, he's going to do something, even if it's pointless, even if it's futile. He's going to die with his boots on, kind of thing.
Because then otherwise, just get on your ship and go. Like, why are you going to put yourself in harm's way and throw yourself at Ashido and do anything when he does not know how to use a sword? He's not a fighter. Okay, he's got a couple of guns, but he's ready to go to his death when he could be like, screw all of you, I'm taking my ship and I'm out.
Yeah, that's a good point. If he wants to, if he really just wanted to leave and he was kind of only concerned with surviving, yeah, I suppose you're right. He could kind of just hop on his ship and leave. And he even makes a statement there where he's begun training a crew to kind of replace all the crew members that they lost, because he's down to only 6 men there when he first talks to his guy there. So yeah, I mean, at this point, Toranaga has released him from service formally and even given him the journals back. So at that point, Blackthorne is pretty free to do whatever he wanted. He could have just left if only he was concerned with his life. So that is a good point, Dana. I like that. I like that.
Because why
the
go
crew
to why go to him? Like, he's like, dude, you're gonna go to Osaka and you're about to kill yourself. So you're talking about death. Let's go out with a bang. Like,
Yeah.
you talk about all these different ways to die and what's better and what. So you're just gonna get on your knees and like kill yourself. Like, here's like, let's take a stand.
Yeah, and again, I do admire that part of Blackthorne. Again, his unwillingness to give up, his refusal to quit in any situation, and he has kind of proven himself to be pretty adaptable at times in the past, both with the blockade escape, with the cannon demonstration. He has been able to kind of think on his feet and create something out of nothing more than once. So I do really appreciate his need to not die here, his willingness to kind of keep going on no matter what, even when everyone else around him is seemingly giving up. Because yeah, at the end of the day, he feels like Toranaga is giving up on him, like Ravenry, like you said at the end of the previous episode, where he's kind of conveying that Toranaga is leading all of his men to the slaughter at the end of the day. So he and a lot of Toranaga's men at this point, they just feel like Toranaga is giving up on them, and they're kind of right to feel that. And again, I know we say it a lot, but it really just goes back to Toranaga playing things too close to the chest can really be detrimental at times. But no, great points, guys. I love the points, and absolutely everybody in the chat, you guys have been killing it tonight as well.
Yeah, man. I want to name. I would name by name, but there are multiple. I mean, all you guys are really making good points, catching things that I'm missing, that I'd missed, perspectives that I didn't have. And I know I came in kind of hot with some takes, and
that's cool.
That's fine. Yeah, I mean, you got some agreed and some disagreed, and you guys are making great points. And believe me, man, I appreciate it. I like the discourse. I like throwing it around and getting, I appreciate pushback, because it's like you have to challenge, if you have a theory, if you have an idea, you have to challenge it to see if it holds up. And yeah, man, I definitely appreciate it.
And again, it wouldn't be fun if everybody just agreed on everything all the time. It's if when you're having a healthy, spirited debate about a show, there's nothing wrong with that. Obviously, you never want things to descend into kind of insults being thrown back and forth, but it is totally fine for everybody to have different opinions on things here in the show, as long as we're hanging out and having fun and discussing it in a civil manner. Disagreement is more than okay. Hell, it's welcome. Like I said, it'd be boring if we all thought the same way.
Yeah,
like I could totally see where Ravener's coming from when it comes to Mariko and Buntaro, and I could totally see where Scarlet's coming from with the whole scene. They're two totally different perspectives coming in, and I'm like, okay, I see it from both your aspects. Like, I get it. And if you can't just sit there and be like, oh, that's understandable, then what's the point of talking about anything? Like, if you can't talk to one another and have a discussion about stuff, then there's really no point to do anything.
Yeah, absolutely. No, spirited debate is most welcome here on the channel, and especially the way that we do it, the way that all of you guys in the chat have been doing it. It's totally cool to all to have different takes on things, and everybody has been pretty respectful, and that's what we love. We want to create a good atmosphere here where people feel free sharing their opinion, even if it's an opinion where maybe the rest of the chat doesn't agree. You guys are more than welcome to share anything here, as far as I'm concerned.
Oh yeah. At the end of the day, it is just a show. There's no need to get hot,
Exactly. It is. We're discussing a TV show at the end of the day. It's nothing to exactly.
On only 2 episodes to go, man.
I would say the fictional characters.
And speaking of 2 episodes left, Sweet Pea was wondering, wait, is there more? Is there more than one season where the next season be all about the battle? As far as we know, this is going to be a 1 season and done story. Unfortunately, like I said, part of me likes that they're kind of committing to just doing 1 season and done, but another part of me, knowing how much source material there is and how much stuff they kind of left out. This is a 1,300 plus page book that they're adapting in only 10 episodes. So, part of me would have liked to see them adapt the book over maybe 2 or 3 seasons and really flesh everything out. And just the fan in me really would have loved to see some more episodes and more scenes with this freaking brilliant cast. But again, I do I do respect, on the other hand, their commitment to kind of just telling the story in one miniseries, one and done, and not stretching it past its expiration date, which we see with so many other series in the past, where they tend to kind of go on long past their expiration date, and the quality tends to drop at that point. But yeah, as far as we know up until this point, Shōgun is only going to be 1 season. Now, of course, there are other James Clavell novels in the series. This was adapted from James Clavell's Shōgun novel, which is one of 6 different books. It's called the James Clavell Asian Saga, and each book, it tells a totally different story in a totally different time period with all different characters, all set within a different periods of Asian history. So even though we might not get a season 2 of Shōgun per se, we could potentially get another adaptation of another one of his books, like Taipan or something like that, because he's got multiple other stories in this series. It's a 6-book series, all different stories. It's kind of an anthology, for lack of better terms. So yeah, we might not get any more Shōgun, but we could get some more, quality storytelling on this level if they choose to adapt a different book of his, which I really hope they do. After seeing the success of Shōgun, and not only the critical success, but the audience success, it's not very often where you see a show come around where both the critics and the audience all really love it and just fall head over heels for this show. So I wouldn't be too surprised if they adapt another one of his novels down the road. Like King Rat, as Michael Lockhart points out, King Rat would be a fun adaptation as well. So hopefully we get some more.
Yeah, I saw all 6 of them rated. Like somebody did a rating of all 6 James Clavell books, and Shōgun was second, was number 2. So I think it might have been King Rat that was was recommended as being the number 1 book in that series, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah, that would be pretty cool. I mean, I would certainly watch it. We would certainly cover it here on the channel if they did adapt another book. That's for sure.
May I ask what King Rat is about? I'm not familiar with it.
I'd have to check. I mean, I'm not sure which time period that's set in. I haven't read all the videos. I haven't read all 6 books myself yet. They're all set in totally different time periods. King Rat is just another one of the stories, but I'm sure Michael will fill us in. What time period is King Rat set in?
World War II. That because he was a prisoner of war. Clavell was a POW.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's the World War II one. Gotcha. Yeah, because I mean, his stories span from all the way back in this time period, feudal Japan, all the way up until like the 70s. I believe one of his book is even set in like the 70s, if I'm not mistaken. So they span a wide variety of different time periods, and they're all kind of loosely based on real historical Asian events, from what I'm told. But I myself am still reading. I haven't read all 6 books, but I definitely will continue to read all of them. It's great writing. James Clavell was a great writer, I must say. And yeah, one and done. When was the last time we had a limited series that we all loved? Absolutely, Chris, 100%. I mean, it's not very often where you see a show come around where just everybody freaking loves it, whether it's the critics, the audience, the fans. Everybody seems to really be loving this series, and that's a rare thing these days, for sure. Absolutely. Shōgun ends in episode 10. A new show titled Sekigahara will be the battle. That would be cool. I mean, I would actually love seeing that. I mean, I'm not expecting it, but that would be pretty cool. And that's another thing. I know we've talked about it time and time again as to whether or not they're even going to show the final battle in this show. Now at this point, they have strayed far enough away from the books that they could easily kind of throw the actual battle into the show and it wouldn't really feel out of place. But of course, I know up until this point, we know the book plays it a little bit differently. It doesn't actually show the battle, but I'm hoping they do on the show, or at least some glimpse of it. We have seen some of those stills that look pretty promising of Toranaga and Ishido, out on a battlefield behind their armies. But whether or not they will actually show the battle, I don't know. I guess we'll have to find out in episodes 9 and 10.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
starting to think less and less we're going to get the battle I would like to
I'm
see.
starting to doubt.
Me
Yeah.
too.
I know. I saw and seeing those promo stills or whatever with the giant CGI army in the background. I was like, what is that there for if they're not going to show it? But what I'm kind of doubting it too, because they still have to spend all that time in Osaka Castle, and the
Yep.
creature Mariko has to get her little moment in
He
the
said the
sun.
creature.
I'm not good. No, but I think I think that's part of the plan is they're gonna put her there, and for some reason, she's gonna get sacrificed, and for whatever reason, somebody somewhere must like her, and then that's gonna make people turn against Ishido. So I think that's what's going to end up happening. Mariko's going to that's going to be her arc, is to essentially die and people like turn against Ishido. That was that was the other one, Ichiba, the scene with Ichiba and the old lady telling her, he was nothing and he was from nothing. See, I always thought, I think they were leading us in that direction. Like everybody's like, oh, he's just a bureaucrat. Everybody's downplaying Ishido. He's like, oh, he's a bureaucrat. Oh, he's common. He's never was anything. He's never gonna be anything. And then the old lady, as she was dying, he is nothing. He's from nothing, and he's of and he's of nothing or whatever. Or he's of nothing and will be nothing. And I think that kind of hit with it because initially Achiba just turned away when he did breach the topic of marriage. But then I think after it kind of sunk in her mind, he is nothing and he's of nothing, or he's of nothing and will be nothing. And that goes all the way back to me talking about the MacGuffin, the heir. If she marries this guy, yes, she'll give up whatever power, but she ain't trying to be the wife of the shogun. She's trying to be the mother of the heir. And if he is weak, if she marries him, even if he is weak, it's better if he is weak, because when her 7 years or whatever, whenever the heir becomes of legal age to take over, then it'll be so much easier to get this guy who is nothing and is of nothing and will never be anything, get him out of the way. And she'll still be the mother of the heir, or instead of being mother of the heir, she'll be the mother of the shogun or whatever.
Yeah. And again, I feel like, especially with Ochiba, being, where she's come from, all the past that she's had, losing her father, tragically, and when she lost her father, she very much lost everything as well. She kind of had to claw, the real character, the real Ochiba, and in the book, she had to claw her way back up from nothing again to become the Taiko's prized consort, pretty much. And yeah, she's at a point now where the Taiko's dead. She's got a good amount of power, and she's got her independence, which is something she hasn't had in a very long time, maybe ever, really. So yeah, I was super surprised when I saw this scene right here, which kind of indicated that she was kind of bowing to Ishido and accepting his marriage proposal. I was a little surprised by this, because I thought for sure she would end up rejecting him, because she's valuing her independence. She's got all the power she could ever hope for. She has the council wrapped around her finger. So politically speaking, she doesn't really have any reason to marry Ishido. She's already got the power. So I was a little surprised with this, with her kind of seemingly, in this scene, it looks like she was agreeing to the marriage proposal by this bow. But I don't know. It was a little weird. I didn't expect her to accept, I guess.
I don't know, unless she, because what does she get? Although they did mention earlier in this episode about the armies of the air. If you get the air, then you get the armies of the air, or something like that, which is also
and Michael Lockhart brings up they ain't married yet. So good point. This might all be a ruse. She might act like she's
him from the start, man. She has been playing him, and he's already he confessed in this episode that he's been looking at her since back in the day.
Yep.
When she was, under her courtesanship or whatever. So yeah, he's been soft on her for a long time, and she knows that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I oh man, I could see her marrying him though, just for a brief period. Because I mean, I see her like killing him in his sleep and poisoning him at some point. But yeah, she's dangerous. You got to watch her.
Yeah, we gotta. Yeah, that's the thing. Ochiba, she's almost like not a female Toranaga, but in terms of characters having similar levels of intelligence and are able to play the political maneuvering just as well as Toranaga can. She's up there with the best of them. I mean, Ochiba can maneuver politically as good, if not better, than any other character we've seen here on the show. So again, I mean,
sorry.
No, go ahead.
I'm wondering if who's gonna save Mariko is gonna be her, Ochiba, because they're friends. Like I always wonder how that clash was gonna come to a head when they actually finally have to see each other.
Will they ever have a scene together? I hope they have a scene together in episode 9. Yeah.
Because who else is gonna? Because either Mariko's gonna die or somebody's gonna like come out and stop it because she's trying to leave. From what I understood from the trailer or whatever for next episode.
Yeah, and they foretold it too earlier when Mariko was meeting with Ochiba's sister, talking about your sister in Osaka. Have you? And the sister said no, only through writing, only through formal writing or whatever, that kind of stuff. So I mean, yeah, the meeting and Toranaga mentioned it too, right?
He asked her about their relationship. What, last episode?
Yeah,
last episode. Yeah, about the sister.
Would she in 1,000 years, join my side? And they're like, no chance.
Oh, this episode too, right? Because they were asking how to get Oshiba on Toranaga's side, or I always say the name of the city and her. I mix them up. I'm so sorry. I'm terrible.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
it's actually the priest that brings it up. The priest suggests that maybe Toranaga can strike some kind of alliance with Ochiba, and essentially that would limit Ashido's power. And yeah, with Toranaga wondering, to Mariko, would she ever even ally with us? And at least, Mariko seems to think that it's actually a possibility. As much as Ochiba hates Toranaga, from Mariko's perspective, Mariko thinks that Ochiba's real enemy is fear. Her being afraid for herself, afraid for the heir, afraid for her son. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. It seems like she does have a pretty deep disdain for Toranaga. So an alliance between Ochiba and him does seem pretty unlikely. But I guess stranger things have happened.
Who would they marry off to her though? Because like, let's say they could, he would have to give her something of a marriage that would satisfy her. Because like Toranaga, basically, she sees as he took everything from her. She doesn't want that to happen again, right? She finally got back up to the top. She's established, and she doesn't want to go back to where she had to, claw her way back up to the top again. So yeah, he would really have to give her. I don't even know who's available in his. Would it be? I mean, she don't want the Yoshiba's nephew. That's probably out of the question. So I don't even know what he would be able to give to her.
And Nagakata isn't around anymore. Well, that's the thing. Toranaga, I don't know how the show is playing it, but in the books, Toranaga has multiple sons. Nagakata isn't his only son. I don't know how they're playing it on the show, that maybe that could be a potential union between Ochiba and one of his kids, or maybe even becoming another wife of Toranaga's. As strange as that would be.
That was a possibility.
Yeah. But the thing is,
he already has multiple wives, Toranaga. We see the main wife, Kiri no Kata, is his main wife, the one that he's been with for the longest. But then he also has that other wife that is still pregnant and in Osaka still. So,
but anybody powerful enough to be a good match for her will also be too powerful to duck aside for her son, the heir. So, because I mean, is that not all? Because everybody, even like everybody on both sides, even Toranaga, isn't he like pretending that he's doing it to preserve and safeguard the heir for the time when the heir comes into power or comes of age? Nobody's acting like they're taking the power.
Yeah, that seems to be his motivation up until this point. It seems like Toranaga generally was kind of loyal to the heir and wants to protect his future. But if history is any indication, things play out much differently. So Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know. But we got Tower Tokyo in the house, even from a Japanese perspective. And thank you for joining us all the way from the land of the rising sun. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Even from a Japanese perspective, they are real historical figures, and the era is perfectly recorded down to the smallest details. And the costumes are accurate and add a cool spice to them. I love. Awesome. I'm glad you guys are liking it. I'm glad everyone's liking it. Like I said, I'm not an expert in feudal Japan myself. I have been doing a ton of research into the time period, and I'm absolutely fascinated with the historical figures, the culture, all of it. Of course, Toranaga on the show is based on the real-life Tokugawa, who becomes one of the most famous shoguns in Japanese history. So yeah, all of these characters, they're plucked right out of real Japanese history, and that's what I love. I love when a story really kind of relies on real world history to tell a good, compelling story. Obviously, you're going to get some changes, you're going to get some things dramatized for TV's sake. But for the most part, yeah, these characters are being plucked directly out of the pages of Japanese history. So that is awesome that people from Japan are even enjoying it as well. So glad to have you here, Tokyo, and hope you guys are enjoying it. Well, it's phenomenal. The show is just so good in every way. I'm loving it. She is very conniving. She is playing him, and I think she's doing it for protection for her and her son. Yeah, again, I think you're probably right. I mean, it doesn't seem like Oiba stands to gain much by marrying Ashido. Again, it seems like she's already got all of the power. I guess she could kind of, politically solidify it with the marriage, but how things stand right now, she's kind of got all the power she could ever want, and she is technically the highest ranking female in all of Japan right now. So yeah, it's the marriage is a little weird, but again, as the chat says, as Michael Lockhart pointed out, just because she bowed to him, it doesn't mean they're married yet. Who knows what could happen over these next two episodes?
Because she didn't seem like she was saying yes or like she was okay with it when he asked her in this episode. She almost kind of looked down like, I'll consider it. Because he didn't seem too happy with her not giving him like a response right away.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, maybe she'll feel like
proposes it to her. She kind of just looks down. Yeah.
Well, I mean, maybe she also is like, because right now it's his army, it's Ashido's army, not hers.
Yeah.
She can kind of tell, she can kind of influence him, and yes, she can kind of like more or less control him or whatever. But if she spurned his marriage proposal, he might be like, well, maybe I may not listen to you as much. So maybe this is by going to him, getting married to him, now it becomes her army too, kind of thing. And again, it says he comes from nothing and is nothing. He'll be easily taken out of the way when the time comes for that to happen, I think. So, but I think it's almost like that's what the formal alliance, or the formal formalization of their alliance, aka marriage, will do, is make it kind of her army too,
Yeah. Give her a legal kind of claim onto it, as opposed to just having Ashido kind of wrapped around her finger. It's a little more solidified at that point. So I guess she does have that to gain, if nothing else. So that is a good point. That is a good point. And Henry Beamer says, Oiba is a very fragile person. That's why she plays the game so well. And oftentimes that is the case. Oftentimes it's usually the most insecure and the most kind of fragile and fearful people that tend to kind of maneuver a little bit better than people that are just comfortable in their station and they don't have to worry so much. Fear is a very powerful motivator when it comes to surviving. Nothing will make you survive or put your survival skills to the task more than fear does. If you're not afraid, ultimately you end up becoming a little bit lax. You end up kind of that's when mistakes happen. But someone who's kind of constantly in fear for their station and their future, they tend to kind of stay attentive to everything around them at all times. So that's a good point. That is a good point. Any women in that time period were in very fragile positions. And unfortunately, it kind of goes back to the way the world kind of just was back then, where it was a totally different world back then where it was today, where unfortunately women just didn't have anywhere near as much say in their own lives as they do now, obviously.
No, love was a bonus. Love.
What
You were
was a
lucky.
bonus? Yeah.
You were lucky to be in love with the man that you were assigned to marry. It wasn't something you didn't get that option like women do, like we do nowadays, to where we can actually marry somebody we love. Women back in these days, you had no choice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
You
it was.
know,
Arranged marriages were much more common than people marrying for love. That's for sure. It's all about alliances back then, indeed. Tornago said, Hiramatsu, need need a favor from you, buddy. Go ahead and commit seppuku for me. Seppa what? Oh, man. Yeah, that's the one deleted scene that we didn't get. Yeah.
it'll be on the Blu-ray.
I made some bourbon salmon earlier. It's gone. Almonds are not going to cut it. Ooh, all right. Well, I hope you enjoyed it, Sweet Pea. That sounds pretty good. Some bourbon salmon. You're making me hungry now. And yeah, as Henry Bemis says, stop talking about food. I have the munchies so
I know
bad.
they're
Me
talking
too.
about it in the chat, man. Talking
Yeah,
about
the munchies
cereal and
are.
everything.
Oh man, the munchies are kicking in. Yeah, cereal. Fuck. I'm gonna have a nice
I
big
know,
bowl of cereal after this stream now.
I know,
Thanks, guys.
man. You have to figure out that's the stream
I
of its
made that
own. What's your
homemade
favorite
sausage and
cereal?
peppers tonight. It was good.
Oh, there you go. There you go. Chris Wiz asks, the Taiko isn't the emperor, though, right? What's the emperor of Japan's role in all this? At this time period, there is very much still an emperor, but they hold little to no power in the day-to-day runnings of the country at all. At this point, the emperor is pretty much relegated just to a ceremonial role. They're kind of viewed as almost deity-like figures, kind of demigod-like figures. They're revered as these, they're revered, but at the end of the day, they hold no real actual power. The real power comes in whoever is shogun or whoever the council is. At this point in time, it is the Council of Five. The Taiko was the most powerful person in Japan. He was the quote-unquote ruler of Japan. Even though there was still an emperor, the emperor was kind of delegated to just a ceremonial role. But yeah, at this point in time, the emperor is still out there, kind of doing his emperor-like things, but he holds no power whatsoever. It's not until the end of the shogunate era, which of course the shogunate era starts from 1603 and lasts all the way up until around 1878, I believe. And during that time period, that is the Tokugawa shogunate period, the Edo period, for lack of better terms. But after that, that is when the emperor kind of starts to regain power again from 1878 on during the next era. But yeah, at this point in time, there is an emperor, but they hold no power whatsoever. It's just a ceremonial role. No actual decision making. And also remember that Daimyo-sama is Team Toranaga until the day she died. Yes, she very much was. We see her very early on in the series kind of trying to convince Toranaga that this is a time that we need a shogun. So at the very beginning, there are many people who kind of wanted Toranaga to, step into that role where he was very reluctant to at first, for sure. For sure. Anyone want to make bets on the finale? Loser has to shave his head like Father Alvito. Well, you guys are free to make any bets you want. I'll make some bets, but I don't know if I'm going to shave my hair off. That's commitment. But no, I mean, this is, again, I mean, it sucks that we're getting down to only 2 episodes left, but this show has been so freaking good up until this point. I really can say I am enjoying Shōgun as much, if not more, than any other series that has come around recently. I genuinely put Shōgun right up there with From and House of the Dragon, my 2 other favorite shows that are on TV currently. Shōgun is just as good, if not even maybe a little bit better than both of those shows. I'm absolutely loving what they're doing. And here we are, folks. We are getting down to the final 2 episodes. There's only 2 episodes left of Shōgun, and we are going to see exactly how this story is going to wrap up. Is there going to be a big battle of Sengokuhara? Are they going to skip over it? What exactly is going to happen with Crimson Sky? I cannot wait. At the very least, it looks like we do have some nice action scenes to look forward to next week, as we saw from the trailer. Mariko getting ready to do her thing with the Nagakado. This is going to be fun. I get the feeling these next 2 episodes are going to be very interesting. It seems like they're saving just about all of the action for these final 2 episodes. So I cannot wait to see how the rest of this thing plays out. And I am really looking forward to seeing what is going to be happening in episode 9. We saw the trailer. Anyone who hasn't seen the trailer for episode 9, I did recently upload my episode 9 trailer breakdown on the channel. That is up if you guys want to check that out. Definitely give it check it out if you haven't already. But I'm looking forward to it. It looks like there are some very interesting things happening in next week's episode based on the very short trailer that we got. I'm looking forward to seeing what kind of role Yabushigi is going to play. It looks like we see him doing some nice midnight skullduggery in the trailer, kind of scaling the walls of Osaka at night. Cannot wait to see what he is up to.
Oh god, what is Blackthorne? Are they going to get to use cannons? I'm so excited.
That's what I'm wondering as well. What role is Blackthorne going to play in all this? Because up until this point, we can kind of see a lot of the characters are kind of set up to play their parts. We got a general idea of what Mariko is going to be doing and what Toranaga is going to be doing, but where is Blackthorne going to fit into all this? And before we close it out, I would love to get everybody's opinion on that, both on the chat and on the panel. Where do you think Blackthorne will fit into these final 2 episodes? It seems like up until this point, over the last 2 or 3 episodes, he has been kind of relegated to a secondary character, and he hasn't really been integral to the main overall plot for the most part. But I imagine they're going to have some kind of plan for Blackthorne over these next 2 episodes, and I can't wait to see what it is. But I, for the life of me, cannot suss out exactly what his role is going to be in all this. What role will Blackthorne play? Will he have a hand in any of the fighting? And do you think his role will be significant at all?
Oh man, I'm hoping that we get to see Blackthorne and Yabushigi do the like the cannons, or somehow they get to use the ship on the next episode in some sort of Crimson Sky thing. Because I'm thinking that Mariko is like a sort of a distraction while the other guys are in there, right? Because I'm assuming I don't know how many days do they get. We get 49 days. So see, I'm confused, but I'm hoping we get some kind of siege with the ship with Blackthorne.
Ooh, okay, that would be cool. That would be cool. What about you, Raven? Do you think Blackthorne's going to have a hand in anything in these next 2 episodes? Where do you think he's going to fall?
Man, I have to think so. And actually, Scarlett made a good point. The one thing that Toranaga did emphasize at the very end was that he's going to use his time that he has wisely. So he's got to cook up something in those 49 days. I can't imagine that they wouldn't turn to Blackthorne to do something. And again, like Scarlett wants the cannons. I want to see them done. I want to see it done. There has to be some kind of spectacle. It can't all be, moving chess pieces here and there. And I don't know though, because you know how tricky they are with their trailers and previews and stuff. They'll show you Yabushige up on the ramparts or whatever, and that might have zero relevance in the entire episode.
He's actually their ship's going to get taken over. That's their ship being, boarded.
Right, it could be a practice.
People. Like, I know, heartbreaking.
Right, they could have built one and like are practicing climbing wall. There's no proof.
They're just practicing scaling the wall in case the siege happens. Yeah,
they're showing the build up right, like they did the cannon. Yeah, we're going to show you how we do all this stuff.
Build up and no payoff.
I'm starting to feel that though with the show. I will say that the build up and payoff for the action parts are starting to get a little frustrating. All the drama and all the emotional stuff and all that's there. All that payoff to me is really good. But I'm craving the battles a little bit more.
Okay, interesting. Nothing wrong with that. What about you, Dana? What do you think Blackthorne is going to have any kind of combat role in these next 2 episodes?
I hope so. I mean, we're obviously not going to see him on the front line with a samurai sword. So we know he's not going to be slicing and dicing anybody. So let's put that out the window. But yes, I would love to see him be able to finally utilize his ship, utilize his cannons, show something. Like, I'm hoping maybe they see what's going on as they get to Osaka, and it's like they're like, oh, he didn't. Like, looking at Toranaga being like, oh, he didn't give up. Like, it was all just a ruse, and they just kind of go full on, let's just fuck shit up type of stuff. Like, let's just go light the cannons, let's destroy stuff. He didn't give up. Let's go have his back and whatever. But it's like, I have a feeling, and I hope they don't do it this way. I really hope we get a little bit of a battle. But I feel like we're gonna see maybe like two sides about to like collide. We're gonna hear Blackthorne kind of narrate what kind of happened in the scene, and maybe we're going to see an aged Blackthorne with maybe if he has kids, or I know that stuff, and he's going to be telling his kids the story of the battle and everything that they went through. I'm hoping we don't see we see a little more than that, but I have a feeling we're going to have this like faded cut scene, and it's going to be Blackthorne narrating the whole thing, and this was like a story he was telling his kids.
Almost like he's telling the whole story from start to finish. Like this whole thing is kind of just being told from his POV later in life. That could be pretty interesting. And I know a lot of people actually thought that is how Game of Thrones was going to end, where the whole thing was being narrated by Samwell Tarly, which I do really hope that could potentially be an ending in the books. But no, that's a good one. I haven't heard that theory on this pertaining to Shogun yet, but that could be pretty interesting, seeing all of this kind of just being retold from Blackthorne's point of view years down the line. I like it. I like it. Hand Drawn Life says, I don't know exactly. Even as a book reader, I'm left here guessing how they will do the last two episodes, and I'm excited. Absolutely, and that's what's been so great about this series, where, again, they have kind of strayed enough away from the books where even book readers are a little bit kind of wondering what's going to happen over these next two episodes. And for me, that's an exciting feeling. I like not knowing what is going to be coming around the corner. Again, a lot of the shows that we talk about here on the channel, whether it's House of the Dragon, Game of Thrones, a lot of the movies and stuff we talk about tend to be based on source material, whether it's books, games, whatever the case may be. So every once in a while, it's nice to just be surprised and not know exactly what is going to come around the corner. I am totally all for book changes, as long as the book changes make sense. Obviously, you don't want to see the book being kind of twisted into something it was never meant to be. So, changes are, there's a limit to how much changes we would want to see, obviously. But if they make some changes and the overall story still remains true to what the original Shogun story was, I am totally cool with that. Give me a nice surprise. I don't mind it. Blackthorne and Yabu with the naval assault, says Doc Hayes. That would be pretty cool. Quan Solar says, I've had too much sake and sujo. And the setup from episode 4 had always been a naval attack cannon. All right. I like it. I like it. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what Blackthorne is going to do. Again, as Hand Drawn Life, I knows what he did in the books, but I have no clue what they will do on the show. And again, that's an exciting feeling, not knowing what is going to be coming.
Well, yeah, and they actually made a good point though in the chat about because I was like, well, they took the cannons off of the Erasmus, off of Blackthorne ship, and they were sailing them back to all that shit was loaded up. And this isn't from me, this is from the chat. They mentioned that they caught at the very end. I mean, that's what Yabushigi was doing. They loaded up the cannons and muskets, right? Supposed to go back to Osaka.
That was part of the that was part of the terms of the condition of the surrender, where Yabushigi was supposed to go to Osaka ahead of Toranaga and relinquish the guns and cannon. Yeah.
Right, but there's nothing to say they might not hang a Yui and head on down.
Yep.
That's what I'm wondering. Like, because Toranaga and his dudes, even if they signed the paper, they wouldn't be able to return for 49 days.
Yep.
But Yabushigi and Blackthorne, they're fully able to go in there. And then with Mariko, I'm assuming she's headed her way up there too with them.
Yep. Mariko is officially with them. We saw that scene between Mariko and Toranaga at the very end of the episode, where Toranaga is asking Mariko if she is finally ready to do her part, with Mariko seemingly being ready to do her part. If the trailer is any indication, she is going to have a action-packed episode in episode 9. So yeah, it's, what exactly is her part going to be? What exactly did Toranaga task Mariko with doing? I can't wait to find out. I know that
I'm assuming that's going to be the Crimson Skies, the three of them.
Something
and then whatever
yeah.
happens with that, with the final episode will be hopefully the battle. Maybe. Fingers crossed.
Okay. Maybe. Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. And welcome, Jun Chat Channel. Hi from Japan. I love this Shogun. That is so awesome. So glad you are loving the show. We are absolutely enjoying it immensely. I am loving the setting. I am loving the characters, the story, the writing, the aesthetic, everything that goes into making this show. We are just head over heels loving up until this point. And I cannot wait to see how these final 2 episodes play out. But again, I am going to be a little bummed when it's over, knowing that we're not going to see this iteration of these characters on screen again. Most likely. It seems like this is going to be a 1 season and done type scenario. But I can't speak highly enough about all of the actors, the cast, and the crew. I know the actors have been doing great, but I really want to take some time and give some props to the cast and crew and everybody behind the camera that really makes this show possible. The costume design, set design, cinematography, everyone that had a hand in making the show. I tip my hat to each and every one of you. You guys have put together such a phenomenal product. And you definitely have loyal fans here if you guys ever decide to do another series set in a similar genre like this. Loving it. Cannot wait to see where it goes. But before we close it out, as we usually do, we got to get everybody's rating from 1 out of 10, with 10 being perfect and 1 being horrible. How exactly would you guys, both on the panel and everybody in the chat, how exactly would you guys rate episode 8 from 1 to 10? Again, with 10 being great, 1 being horrible, how would you guys rate episode 8? For me, I give the episode as a whole a 7, and I give the ending a 9.5. But overall, I liked a lot of what I saw. Some things I think could have been done a little bit differently, but overall, phenomenal episode. I'll give it a 7.5. 7.5 for me out of 10 for episode 8. That is my rating. Ravener, where are you at?
Ooh, man. I started, I thought about this all day, and I started at 0, and I was like, well, 0 wouldn't be fair. And you guys know, and you guys in the chat know, if you followed it all, I've always been more generous. Yeah, I've always tended to high. I've always tended like a half a point higher than anybody on the generous side. And then I was thinking, I got up to about 5. I might give it about a 6.5. They've killed what it is for me. It wasn't the same characters that I spent 7.5 episodes watching. Some of this stuff, Toranaga I just didn't recognize these people. Mariko, no longer a sympathetic character. She just became nasty. Toranaga, instead of being like the mastermind who was going to rise above and still maintain virtue, he just became another. It became less fiction and more historical, because they were historical people. So yeah, man, it didn't, so many things that I think I saw what the writers were going for in a couple of the different scenes, and just too many of them didn't ring true. And it had nothing to do with the loss of Hiramatsu, because that scene itself was phenomenal. The acting, and the thing is, even if I didn't like what the writers did with the story, the acting and all of the other components of this show are so just phenomenal. It really is a treat to, again, even if I don't like it, I have to, like you said, tip your cap to these guys. They've really put on such an awesome spectacle, and I want to see something fantastic in these next 2 episodes.
And hopefully we do. Hopefully we see this show end on a nice high note, and they're able to kind of stick the landing as well as they have stuck everything up until this point. Hopefully. But what about you, Scarlett? Where do you rank this episode out of 10?
I'll give it a 7.5, mostly because I still feel like I'm lacking the action, but I love all the acting in it. All the dramatic stuff, they're hitting for me. I like the emotional stuff. So other than the action is what's a little lacking so far, and I'm scared that we're not going to get too much more in the next 2.
Okay, interesting, and fair, very fair. What about you, Dana? Where do you rank this episode 8?
I'm at a 7. This was not my favorite. This was not my least favorite, but this was a little all over the place for me. I think that Toranaga sacrificed way too much for what he's trying to do. I feel like by killing off all the people closest to you and having them go through this, you're going to end up going to Osaka with nobody, like he pretty much is. And it's taking Blackthorne to kind of go behind his back to kind of be like, let's go do something. This is like a sadness factor for me. Not that the episode was bad or the acting. It was just like, I felt defeated in this episode.
Okay, interesting. I totally get what you're saying. I mean, looking back on the episode, I do think at times maybe a little much was sacrificed to kind of get the desired result. Maybe it could have been handled other ways, but at the end of the day, I again, the performance alone has been absolutely phenomenal. And again, for an episode that wasn't my favorite, it definitely had some individual scenes that I do rank as high as any other scenes that we've seen in the entire season. Like, of course, the death of Hiramatsu, and of course the tea ceremony scene. The tea ceremony scene was incredibly well acted, if nothing else. Regardless on which end you land on, how you liked it or didn't like it, the acting in and of itself, just looking at it subjectively, was absolutely phenomenal. And I really liked how they portrayed the tea ceremony, and they went into really good detail showing every little aspect of what Buntaro kind of does in his tea ceremony. So yeah, even if you didn't like the desired result, the acting is to be commended.
Yeah.
Ray Barnes gives it a 9 out of 10. Awesome rating. Love it. Henry Bemis gives it an 8.5 out of 10. I dug it. Hell yeah, man. Awesome. Leo V gives it a 9 as well. Michael Lockhart gives it an 8.5 overall, but a 10 for the tea ceremony. All right. That's fair. That is fair. An 8 for Quan Solar. Mariko kind of annoyed me. That is fair as well. All opinions are fair. Doc Hayes says, I give it an 8.5. I raised last week's episode to a 9.5. Interesting.
Nice.
Interesting. Kai says, could have been a 12 out of 10, dropped to a 7.77 due to Mariko. Oh, okay. My first less than 8.88 episode. Okay, so this is Kai's lowest rated episode up until this point. All right. Tea ceremony was definitely a 9+, says Doc Hayes. Yeah, I agree. It was just phenomenally well. Just phenomenal. Love it, guys. I love seeing the ratings at the end of these streams. It's always fun to see where you guys put these episodes. Hand Drawn Life rates it as a 9 as well, if only for the fact that there will be lots of tea between the courtesan neighbors. Would have been a 10, but I felt gutted by that episode. I did too. A little bit of me did feel a little bit gutted, for lack of better terms.
Yeah.
Leaving this episode, you had that kind of just gutted feeling, I guess. This was definitely the Empire Strikes Back moment of the trilogy. Obviously, you have A New Hope, which is great. It's kicking the story off. Anyone who's a Star Wars fan will obviously get this. Then you have Empire Strikes Back, which is very much, in my opinion, it's the best movie out of the 3 original trilogy, but it's certainly the darkest. And by the end of that movie, you certainly see our heroes are at their lowest point. And I kind of felt that way just as a fan leaving this episode as well. So I'm hoping episode 9 and 10 bring that right back up, and I have a feeling they will. I'm really looking forward to these final 2, and I get the feeling they will stick the landing. I think they will. But again, I want to thank everybody for joining us this evening. I always look forward to these streams. They are always a ton of fun to hang out with all of you guys in the chat and talk Shogun. We will, of course, be live again next week as well. We will be live Monday for our pre-show and Wednesday for our after show as well. So get out there, guys. Get ready for episode 9. It is coming in less than a week. And of course, if you haven't already seen our episode 8 breakdown and our episode 9 trailer breakdown, both of those are uploaded on the channel right now. Definitely check those out. Leave a thought and a comment down below. Let us know what you guys think of everything. And until next week, we will see all of you guys on the next one. Wow.
Death is in our air. And sea. And earth. It can come for us at any moment. To show your true heart is to risk your life. Enemies are everywhere and friends nowhere. Life and death are the same. Both can have value and purpose. Remember, we live and we die. We control nothing beyond that.